The day I signed away my doctorate fund, I wore my lucky interview blazer. Stupid, really. There's no luck in a blazer when you're walking into an ambush. My name is Alexis, and I spent 6 years building that fund. Two jobs, data entry by day, waitressing at night. No vacations, no new clothes, definitely no dating. Just me, my tiny studio apartment, and a dream of becoming a trauma psychologist that kept me going through countless midnight shifts. 87,130 times 18 to be exact. Every penny accounted for, every extra dollar stretched and saved. Sweetheart, this is the opportunity of a lifetime, my father said, spreading glossy renderings across our dining room table. A luxury spa complex, prime location, guaranteed returns. His voice had that familiar smoothness, the one he used when closing business deals. I glanced at my mother, who was hovering nearby with an expectant smile. My sister Francesca sat opposite me, examining her manicure with practiced disinterest. The initial investment pool needs to be substantial, Dad continued. We're all contributing. As a family. All of us? I asked, my throat tight. Of course. Mom clasped her hands together. Your father's putting in his bonus, I'm using my inheritance, and Francesca's bringing her business expertise. I noticed she didn't mention actual money from Francesca. How much? I managed. Dad named a figure that matched my education fund down to the dollar. What a coincidence. It's perfect timing, Mom added quickly. Before you start that school thing. This way, you'll have even more money for it later. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. Probably Brinley texting to check if I was still coming for our planned study session. I'd have to cancel. Again. Can I see the business plan? I asked. Dad slid over a thick document. Already vetted by lawyers, top notch team. I flipped through it, my stomach churning. The numbers were there, but something felt off. 6 years of accounting work had taught me to spot creative mathematics. I need time to think about it, I said. The opportunity closes tomorrow, Dad replied sharply. Other investors are lined up. Alexis. Mom's voice softened to that guilt triggering tone I knew too well. Family has to come first. We've always taught you that. Francesca finally looked up. Don't be difficult, sis. We all have to pull our weight. Pull our weight? Right? Like when she borrowed my car last year and returned it with an empty tank, or when she borrowed my laptop and spilled wine on it. Never paid me back for either. I stood up. I need to make a call. Alexis, Dad started, but I was already walking to the porch. My hands shook as I dialed Josephine, my former professor who'd become a mentor and friend. They want all of it, I whispered when she answered, for some spa investment. Don't sign anything, she said immediately. I'll be there in 20 minutes. True to her word, Josephine arrived with her briefcase and reading glasses. Dad's smile tightened when I introduced her as my legal advisor. Just a precaution, I said sweetly, for the family's protection, of course. 2 hours later, I watched my father sign the modified agreement. Josephine had insisted on adding what she called standard protective clauses. Mom kept wringing her hands, shooting worried glances at Dad, who clearly wanted to object but couldn't without looking suspicious. Congratulations, Josephine said professionally. I'll file these copies first thing tomorrow. That night, I sat on my bed, staring at the transfer confirmation, my entire future, gone in one click. My phone lit up with a text from Brinley. Everything okay? I started typing. Just signed away my PhD fund to help family. No big deal. Deleted it. Started again. Remember when you said my family takes advantage? You were right. Deleted that too. Finally, I wrote, rain check on studying. Something came up with family. Her response was immediate. Again? Girl, you need boundaries. I looked at the legal documents spread across my bed. Oh, I had boundaries now, and a promissory note that would make a corporate lawyer weep. What my family didn't know, I'd learned from the best about documentation. Every email, every text, every family meeting, recorded and archived. 6 years of watching Francesca get bailed out taught me patience, and Josephine taught me something better, how to write a contract that could strangle someone with their own words. I carefully filed away the signed documents in my fireproof safe. Let them think I'm the same dutiful daughter, the reliable sister, the one who always says yes. For now. 3 weeks of silence. No updates, no emails, not even a group text about the investment. Just mom's usual forwards about family dinner and dad's weekly golf scores. I was elbow deep in receipts at my accounting job when my cousin Maria called. You coming to Uncle Rob's birthday dinner tonight? I'd completely forgotten. Yeah, I'll be there. Good, because I need someone sober to drive me home. This family drives me to drink. She wasn't kidding. By 8 o'clock, Maria was 3 glasses deep in red wine, leaning against me on Uncle Rob's back porch. It's just so unfair, she slurred. Francesca gets everything handed to her, even her store. Did you hear about the bailout? My hand tightened around my water glass. What bailout? The boutique was going under. Again. Maria rolled her eyes. But Daddy Dearest swooped in with some mystery investment. Lucky girl gets another chance while the rest of us actually work for a living. The glass nearly slipped from my fingers. When did this happen? Like 3 weeks ago? Right after that big family meeting everyone was so hush hush about. I stood up so quickly Maria almost fell over. Through the sliding glass door, I could see Francesca holding court in the living room, showing off what looked like new designer boots. My mother intercepted me before I could reach her. Sweetheart, you look pale. Are you feeling all right? Where's the spa paperwork? I asked quietly. Her smile flickered. What? The investment documents, Mom. For the spa complex. Where are they? Oh, that's all being handled by your father's team. You know how these things are. There is no spa, is there? The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. Let's not do this here, she whispered. It's your uncle's birthday. Fine. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. My apartment. I turned to leave, but her hand caught my arm. Alexis, please. Family matters should stay private. I looked down at her manicured fingers, probably fresh from the salon Francesca owned. Private? Like the way you privately took my education fund? She released me like I'd burned her. The next morning, they all showed up. Mom, Dad, and Francesca. Even Francesca's business partner Gareth tagged along, looking uncomfortable in an expensive suit. This is ridiculous, Francesca started. You're being dramatic. Show me the spa paperwork, I interrupted. Dad cleared his throat. The deal fell through. Really? When? These things happen in business, he said smoothly. Sometimes investments don't. Stop lying. I opened my laptop, turned it around. Here's the county business registry. No new spa applications, no permits, no nothing. Francesca shifted in her seat. Gareth suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. But here's what I did find. I clicked to another screen. $87, 432 and 8 cash injection into Francesca's Boutique LLC 3 weeks ago. Exact amount? Interesting coincidence. You went snooping through private business records? Dad's face darkened. Public records, Dad. Amazing what you can find when you know where to look. Mom stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. Sweetie, you have to understand. Your sister was in trouble, so you stole my future to bail her out. Again? We didn't steal anything, Francesca snapped. It was a family decision. I laughed. Actually laughed. A family decision? Like when you decided to take my car and wreck it? Or when you decided I should give up that summer internship to help at your store opening? That's enough. Dad stood up. We're your parents. We made a judgment call. You made a fraud call. I pulled out a folder. Here's your judgment. Full repayment within 30 days, or I enforce every clause in that contract you signed. Mom gasped. You wouldn't. Try me. This is insane. Francesca exploded. I'm your sister. And I'm done being your ATM. They left in a storm of threats and tears. Mom promised we'd talk when I calmed down. Dad mentioned something about ungrateful children. Francesca just glared. Only Gareth lingered, pretending to take a phone call while the others left. Alexis, he said quietly, maybe we can work something out. I smiled, the same smile I'd seen my father use countless times. We already did. It's called a promissory note. Tick-tock. After they left, I called Brinley. Remember when you said I needed boundaries? Yeah, I just built a wall. She was quiet for a moment. You okay? I looked at my laptop screen, at the trail of financial breadcrumbs I'd spent a week uncovering, at the evidence of years of manipulation I'd been too loyal to see. No, I said honestly, but I will be. Your father has 3 classic cars registered in his name, Josephine said, sliding the documents across her desk: a 1965 Mustang, 1970 Corvette, and a 1957 Thunderbird, total value around $300,000. I stared at the vehicle registrations. How did you? Public records, dear. The same ones he uses to intimidate his business rivals. She smiled. The Corvette's scheduled for the Heritage Auto Show next month. Would be a shame if someone filed a lien notice right before. The next week crawled by in a blur of legal paperwork and ignored calls from my family. Mom left tearful voicemails. Dad's messages got progressively angrier. Francesca switched between threats and guilt trips via text. I was at my desk, reviewing the final draft of the demand letter, when my mother showed up unannounced. We need to talk, she said, walking in like she owned my apartment. The time for talking was before you stole my money. Don't be crude. She perched on my couch, smoothing her designer skirt. We're trying to understand your perspective, but you're making it very difficult. My perspective? I turned to face her. Okay, here it is. You lied to me, took my education fund, and gave it to Francesca. Again. We didn't think you'd hold us to it. We're your parents. That's the problem, isn't it? You never think I'll hold anyone accountable. She sighed dramatically. Your father is very upset. This could affect his health. Emotional blackmail won't work anymore, Mom. It's not blackmail to care about family. She stood up, voice rising. Everything we've done has been for this family. No, everything you've done has been for Francesca. That's not fair. Really? Remember when I got that scholarship to study abroad, but oh no, Francesca was going through a breakup and needed me home, or when I wanted to move out for college, but Francesca needed a roommate for her first apartment. She's your sister, and I'm your daughter. The words exploded out of me. But you've never treated me like one. I'm just the backup plan, the reliable one, the ATM. Mom's face crumpled into practiced tears. How can you say such things? Because they're true. And now you're going to pay me back. We can't possibly. Dad's cars can. She froze. You wouldn't dare. The demand letter goes out tomorrow. 30 days to pay in full, or I start placing liens. First the Corvette, then the Mustang, then the T-Bird. Your father loves those cars. I loved my dream too. She left in tears, but I noticed they dried up pretty quickly once she reached her car. The next morning, I had barely sat down at work when Francesca burst into my office. You're going to destroy everything, she screamed, mascara already running. My coworkers stared. I led her to the break room. Lower your voice. Do you know what you're doing? She hissed. Dad's cars are his life, his reputation in the collector's community. Should have thought about that before using my money to bail out your failing business. I was desperate. The boutique is everything to me. And my doctorate was everything to me. Funny how that worked out. She grabbed my arm. Please, Alexis, I'll pay you back slowly. I promise. Like you promised to pay me back for the car? The laptop? The rent money? That was different. No, it wasn't. You've been taking and taking for years because you knew I wouldn't fight back. Well, surprise. Mom says you're just jealous because I'm more successful? I laughed. Successful? Your boutique is hemorrhaging money. The only reason you're still open is because of my savings. You bitch, she whispered. You've always been jealous of me. No, Francesca. I've always been used by you. There's a difference. Later that night, I received an email from Dad's lawyer attempting to dispute the promissory note. I forwarded it to Josephine. Her response came minutes later. Their lawyer's good, but I'm better. Sleep well. I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. The Heritage Auto Show website showed Dad's Corvette as a featured entry. Below it was a form for filing legal notices. My phone buzzed, a text from Brinley. How's the war going? I looked at the legal notice form, thought about Dad's precious cars, about years of being the family doormat. Remember how they always said I was too nice? I texted back. Yeah? Not anymore. I clicked submit on the legal notice. Tomorrow, Dad would discover his prized Corvette had a very public problem. Sometimes being nice means being quiet, but sometimes justice needs to make some noise. News travels fast in collector car circles. By the end of the week, Dad's country club buddies were whispering about the lien. Then someone leaked Francesca's boutique financials to the family WhatsApp group. Aunt Linda called it creative accounting. Uncle Rob was less diplomatic. Who runs a business this badly? I was grabbing coffee before work when I overheard two women at the counter. Did you see Francesca's Instagram? All those designer posts and her stores basically bankrupt. I heard her daddy's cars are getting seized. I smiled into my latte. Karma was percolating nicely. The real surprise came at the Metropolitan Legal Conference. I was there representing my accounting firm when I literally bumped into him. Alexis? I knew that voice. Samir, my ex from undergrad, still unfairly handsome in his tailored suit. Hey, I managed. Didn't expect to see you here. I'm presenting on contract law. He smiled that same smile that used to make my knees weak. Getting coffee after? For old time's sake? I almost said no. Then I remembered seeing his name somewhere in my research. Sure, why not? Over coffee, he was all charm and carefully casual questions about my family. Heard about your sister's boutique troubles? He said. Tough break. Yeah, investments gone wrong. His hand tightened slightly around his cup. Interesting. Speaking of investments, I kept my voice light. Didn't you do some work with Gareth Fuller recently? Coffee nearly spilled. How did you? Small world, right? My sister's business partner hiring my ex boyfriend as his lawyer. Coincidence? Alexis, I can explain. Please do. Explain how you helped draft fake investment documents to defraud me. He glanced around nervously. Not here. Your office. 1 hour. His corner office screamed junior partner ambitions. He closed the door, loosened his tie. It wasn't personal, he started. Creating fake documents to steal my money feels pretty personal. Gareth hired me to draft standard investment papers. I didn't know they were for you until after. Bullshit. I pulled out my phone. You addressed the preliminary documents to me specifically, 2 months before the family meeting. His face went pale. How did you get those? I'm good at my job, Samir. Really good. Want to know what else I found? He sat heavily in his chair. 3 similar investment opportunities in the past year, all targeting people's savings, all using the same template you drafted. You can't prove. Actually, I can, and the Bar Association would be very interested. What do you want? Everything. Every email, every document, every conversation with Gareth about this scam. He'll kill me. The Bar Association will do worse. He opened his laptop with shaking hands. Give me an hour. That night, I sat in my apartment reading through Samir's files. The whole scam laid bare. Gareth using Francesca's boutique to launder money, my parents getting a cut for bringing in investors, Samir providing legal cover. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. Is this Alexis? A panicked voice. I'm calling from Francesca's boutique. She's on the floor and not responding. What? She was screaming about ruined lives, then just collapsed. The ambulance is coming, but she kept saying your name. My hand tightened on the phone. Which hospital? Memorial General. Please hurry. I grabbed my keys, then stopped. Was this another manipulation? Another trap? My phone buzzed again. Gareth. Your sister's in the hospital, he said roughly. Happy now? What happened? What happened? You happened. The lien, the leaked financials, the rumors, it all got to her. She had a breakdown. Not my problem. No? Tell that to your parents. They're beside themselves. I ended the call, stared at my reflection in the dark window. In the glass, I saw my mother's face, heard her voice. Family has to come first. But families don't steal from each other. They don't lie and manipulate and gaslight. My phone lit up with a text from Brinley. Heard about Francesca. You okay? No. Yes. Maybe. Another text came through. From Mom. Your sister needs you. Please. I thought about Francesca lying in a hospital bed, about years of resentment and rivalry, about the satisfaction of watching my family's perfect facade crumble. On my way, I texted back. Not because they deserved it, not because I forgave them, but because I needed to see their faces when they realized this changed nothing. The promissory note was still in effect. The lien was still active, and now I had proof of their larger scam. Sometimes rock bottom has a basement. Memorial General's emergency room reeked of disinfectant and desperation. Mom paced the waiting area while Dad argued with a nurse about family only visiting hours. They both froze when they saw me. Oh, thank God, Mom rushed over. She's been asking for you. Had she? Or was this another manipulation? What happened? Panic attack, Dad said gruffly. She was going through the boutique's papers and just collapsed. A doctor approached with a clipboard. She's stabilized, 2 visitors at a time. Mom grabbed my arm. Come on. Francesca lay in the hospital bed looking small and pale, her designer outfit replaced by a blue gown, an IV dripped steadily beside her. Lexi? Her voice was raspy. You came? Yeah. I stayed by the door while Mom fussed with her pillows. I'm sorry, Francesca whispered. About everything. Sorry because she meant it, or sorry because she got caught. The boutique's finished, she continued. Gareth cleaned out the accounts and disappeared. Mom gasped. What? He's been stealing for months. I was too scared to tell anyone. Tears rolled down Francesca's cheeks. I thought I could fix it with Alexis's money. You should have told us, Mom said. Like you told me about the fake investment? I couldn't help asking. Mom flinched. A nurse came in to check Francesca's vitals. She needs rest. You can come back tomorrow. In the hallway, Dad pulled me aside. We need to talk. About what? The fraud? The lies? Or how about Samir helping you set it all up? His face reddened. You talked to Samir? I have everything, Dad. The fake documents, the emails, the whole scheme. How many other people did you and Gareth scam? It's not what you think. Really? Because it looks like fraud. Wonder what the police would think. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I'm done being the family doormat. He grabbed my arm. Listen here. No, you listen. I yanked free. You have 24 hours to transfer my money back. Every penny, or I'm taking everything to the authorities. You destroy this family over money? You already did that when you stole from me. I turned to leave, but stopped. Oh, and Dad? The Corvette's just the beginning. I wonder what your car club buddies will say when they learn the truth about their trusted treasurer. His face went pale. Outside, the night air felt clean compared to the hospital's stuffiness. My phone buzzed. Brinley, you out yet? Yeah. Come over. I have wine and zero judgment. I found her on her balcony with 2 glasses and a sympathetic smile. Spill. So I did. About Francesca's collapse, Gareth's disappearance, the larger scam. Holy shit, she whispered. Your family's like a soap opera. More like a horror show. I took a long sip. Am I terrible for not feeling guilty? They stole your future, Lex. You're allowed to be angry. My phone lit up. An email from Samir. Found more evidence. Gareth and your father ran this scheme 3 times before. Different businesses, same pattern. One victim lost their retirement fund. Meeting tomorrow? I showed Brinley. Your dad's going down, she said quietly. Yeah. You okay with that? I thought about years of manipulation, of Francesca's fake tears and Mom's guilt trips, of Dad's constant dismissal of my dreams. They made their choice, I said. Now they can live with it. Later that night, I sat at my desk reviewing Samir's new files. Each document was another nail in my family's coffin, another victim of their greed. My phone buzzed, Francesca calling from the hospital. There's something you need to know, she said without preamble. About Grandma's trust fund. What about it? The money she left for your education. I took it. Years ago. Dad helped me hide it. The wine glass in my hand cracked. You what? I was desperate. The first boutique was failing, and Dad said you'd never know because you were too busy with your scholarships. I ended the call. All those years of working double shifts, of skipping vacations, of living on ramen while saving every penny. And they had stolen my inheritance too. I opened my laptop and started typing an email to Josephine. Need your help with one more thing. Time to go nuclear. Her response came quickly. Finally, let's burn it all down. I looked at the family photo on my desk, all of us smiling at last Christmas. Such a perfect facade. Time to shatter it completely. The trust fund documents lay spread across Josephine's desk like evidence at a crime scene. 6 years of bank statements, transfer records, and doctored paperwork. They did a decent job hiding it, Josephine said, adjusting her glasses. But your grandmother's original will is clear. The money was explicitly for your education. How much? With interest? Almost $200,000. My legs went weak. All those extra shifts I'd worked, all those nights I'd stayed up calculating how to stretch my savings. What do we do? Josephine smiled grimly. We go after everything. I visited Francesca in the hospital that afternoon. She'd been moved to the psychiatric ward after what the doctors called acute anxiety with depressive features. You look terrible, I said, sitting beside her bed. Thanks. She tried to smile. Always the honest one, weren't you? Unlike some people. She picked at her blanket. I guess you know about Grandma's money now. Why, Francesca? You already had everything. Not everything. Her voice cracked. Not Dad's respect. Not real success. The boutique was supposed to prove I could make it on my own. By stealing from me? I was going to pay it back, once the store took off, but it never did, because you're terrible at business. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I know I am. Everyone expected me to be this amazing success story, Mom's beautiful daughter, Dad's business prodigy. Well, I was just the reliable backup plan. No. She grabbed my hand. You were the smart one, the capable one. Do you know how terrifying that was? Watching you succeed at everything while I kept failing? I pulled my hand away. So you decided to sabotage me? I decided to take shortcuts, and then more shortcuts. And then Gareth showed up with his schemes, and Dad was so proud of my business acumen. Where's Gareth now? Probably in Mexico. He emptied the business account last week. A nurse appeared with medication. I stood to leave. Alexis, Francesca called. I really am sorry. I know, but sorry doesn't fix this. In the hallway, I ran into Mom. She looked older, worn down. Your father's not well, she said without preamble. His blood pressure? Stop. Just stop with the guilt trips. It's not a guilt trip. He's really sick. The stress of everything. The stress of getting caught, you mean? She grabbed my arm. Please, we can work something out. We're family. Family? I laughed. You stole my inheritance. You watched me work multiple jobs for years, knowing I had money sitting in a trust fund. We were protecting you from yourself. You and these crazy dreams of becoming a doctor. Protecting me? You were controlling me, keeping me dependent. Well, guess what? It ends now. I pulled out my phone, showed her the email I'd drafted. This goes to every member of Dad's car club tomorrow. Full details of the fraud scheme, plus copies to the local business journal. Her face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. Oh, and the police get their copy too. Fraud over $100,000 is a felony, Mom. We'll lose everything. Like I lost my future? She started crying. Real tears this time, not the performative ones I'd grown up with. What do you want? Everything. The trust fund money, my savings, with interest, and Francesca signs over her share of Grandma's estate to me. That's all we have left. Should have thought of that before becoming criminals. I walked away as she slid down the wall, sobbing. My phone buzzed. Brinley, you okay? No, but I will be. That night, I sat in my apartment looking at old family photos, Christmases, birthdays, vacations, all those smiling faces hiding so many lies. My phone lit up with texts. Dad, please don't do this. I'm begging you. Mom, think about your sister's condition. Francesca, I'll sign whatever you want. I thought about the scared teenager I'd been, working midnight shifts while my trust fund sat locked away. About the family that watched me struggle and said nothing. I opened my laptop and started typing, Dear members of the Heritage Car Club. Sometimes family isn't about blood, sometimes it's about justice, and justice was about to get very, very expensive. The Heritage Car Show was Dad's favorite event of the year. He'd spent months polishing that Corvette, bragging about its original parts, its perfect restoration. Now he stood watching as officers placed seizure notices on his prized possession. You can't do this, he kept saying. Not here, not today. But I could, and I did. His car club friends whispered and pointed. Some held up phones, recording. The email I'd sent had spread like wildfire through their community. Words like fraud and scam floated through the crowd. Alexis. He grabbed my arm. Please, I'll sell it privately. Just not like this. I pulled free. Should have paid what you owed. I'm your father. No, you're just another criminal who got caught. His face went red, then gray. He stumbled, clutching his chest. Dad? Despite everything, my heart jumped. Can't breathe. Someone called an ambulance. Mom arrived as they loaded him into it, screaming about how this was all my fault. You happy now? She spat. You finally broke him. I watched them drive away, blue lights flashing. My phone buzzed. Brinley. Saw the news? You okay? He had a heart attack at the car show. Shit. Bad? Minor, according to the paramedics, but Mom's playing it up for maximum guilt. Classic her. I walked through the dispersing crowd to where Josephine waited. The seizure's legal, she said. They can fight it, but they won't win. What about the trust fund investigation? Police are very interested. Turns out your father's creative accounting went beyond just your inheritance. My phone kept lighting up with messages from relatives, some supportive, most horrified. Aunt Linda called me heartless. Uncle Rob said he'd suspected Dad's schemes for years. I visited the hospital that evening, found Mom in the waiting room with Francesca, who'd been released from the psychiatric ward that morning. Mild cardiac event, Mom said stiffly. No permanent damage, no thanks to you. Francesca wouldn't meet my eyes. The police called me today, about the trust fund. And I told them everything, about Dad helping me hide it, about the other schemes. Mom gasped. You did what? I'm tired of lying, Mom. Tired of pretending we're perfect. A doctor approached with papers. Mr. Price can go home tomorrow, but he needs to avoid stress. Mom laughed bitterly. Stress? His own daughter is destroying him. No, I said quietly. He destroyed himself. Back home, I found an envelope in my mail. Inside was a check, the full amount of my savings plus interest, and a note from Dad. You win. The trust fund money will follow. Just stop the investigation. Please. Dad, I called Josephine. They paid. The initial amount, yes, but the trust fund fraud is criminal. That's out of our hands now. Good. My phone lit up. Francesca, did you get Dad's money? Yes. The police want me to testify about everything. I sat down heavily. Are you going to? Yes, I'm done covering for him, for all of us. Silence stretched between us. I really am sorry, Lexi, for everything. I know. Think we'll ever be okay? I thought about years of resentment, of competition and lies. I don't know. That night, I sat at my desk staring at a letter, an acceptance to the doctoral program I'd dreamed of. It had arrived that morning, lost in the chaos of Dad's heart attack and the car seizure. My phone buzzed. Brinley. Dinner? You shouldn't be alone tonight. I looked at the acceptance letter again, at the check from Dad, at a photo of my grandmother on my desk. Actually, I texted back, I'm not alone anymore. I've got myself back. The next morning, the local paper's business section ran the story, prominent businessman under investigation for fraud. Below it, a photo of Dad's Corvette being towed from the car show. Mom called, crying. I let it go to voicemail. Francesca texted, police interview tomorrow, scared but ready. I opened my laptop and started typing my acceptance email to the doctoral program. Sometimes victory tastes like ashes, but sometimes it tastes like freedom. I hit send on the email, then opened my banking app. Dad's repayment had cleared. The trust fund investigation was proceeding. My future was mine again. In my inbox, another email arrived from the police detective handling the case. Time to finish what I started. The courtroom felt smaller than I expected. Dad sat at the defendant's table, shoulders slumped in his once pristine suit. Mom wasn't there. She'd stopped attending after the first hearing. Francesca took the stand, her hands shaking as she detailed years of financial manipulation. Dad stared at the floor as his golden child dismantled his carefully constructed image. The trust fund was just the beginning. She testified. There were other investors. other schemes. Dad said it was just business, but I watched him crumble with each revelation. The great manipulator, finally manipulated by truth. During the recess, he approached me in the hallway. You could still stop this, he whispered. Tell them you want to drop the charges. That's not how criminal cases work, Dad. You know that. I did it all for the family. No, you did it for yourself, for your ego. He aged 10 years in that moment. I'll lose everything. Like I almost lost my future? Back inside, the judge delivered the sentence 18 months plus restitution. Dad would serve his time in minimum security, but his reputation was already serving life. Outside the courthouse, Francesca caught up to me. Moving to Arizona next week, she said. Fresh start. Good luck? I mean it this time. The fresh start. No more schemes, no more lies. She hesitated. Maybe? Maybe we can talk sometimes. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple business wear. The artificial confidence replaced by something more genuine. Maybe, someday. Mom was waiting by my car. Happy now? She asked. Your father's going to prison. He sent himself to prison. I just exposed the truth. The truth? She laughed bitterly. The truth is, you destroyed this family. No, Mom. The family destroyed itself. I just refused to be collateral damage anymore. I drove to my grandmother's grave, placed the court documents against her headstone. Got it all back, Grandma. Plus interest. Hope you're proud. My phone buzzed. Brinley. Verdict? Guilty. Prison time. You at the cemetery? How'd you know? Because I know you. Coming to get you. First round's on me. Later, at our favorite bar, Brinley raised her glass. To justice. To consequences, I corrected. My phone lit up with a text from Josephine. Doctoral program called. They're holding your spot for spring semester. I showed Brinley. Look who's going to be Dr. Alexis. She grinned. If I still want it. Do you? I thought about the past months. The anger, the vindication, the cost. Yeah, but not for the reasons I did before. Oh, before I wanted to prove something. To them. To myself. Now, I smiled. Now, I just, want it for me. My phone buzzed again. Francesca. Found more of Dad's documents in the boutique. Police want to see them. Should I? I typed back. Truth sets you free. Her response came quickly. Speaking of free, I signed over my inheritance rights. Check your email. Brinley watched me read the documents. You okay? Getting there. We ordered another round. Outside, the sun was setting on the city where my family's empire had crumbled, where I'd finally stood up and said enough. My phone buzzed one last time. Mom, your father wants to see you before they take him tomorrow. I didn't respond. Some bridges stay burned, some families stay broken. But sometimes broken things make way for stronger replacements. I raised my glass to Brinley. To new foundations? To new foundations, she echoed. Tomorrow, I'd start my doctoral applications. Next week, I'd help Francesca pack for Arizona. Next month, Dad would start his sentence. But tonight I sat with my best friend, feeling the weight of secrets and lies finally lift from my shoulders. Feeling free. My phone lit up with another message, from my grandmother's old number. Mom must have finally canceled it. The automated text read, "This number is no longer in service." I smiled. Some endings are really beginnings in disguise. One more round? Brinley asked. One more round, I agreed. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, like possibilities, like truth. I was ready for all of it.
As I prepared for remarriage, Peter looked at me, a trace of irony in his voice. Since I'm getting remarried, it's only fair for you to find a new place to live. The responsibility of the $15,000 loan will now fall on my new partner, he said. I couldn't believe his nerve, handing off a financial obligation I had worked so hard to pay down. Then I guess those $6,000 monthly payments are now yours to handle, I replied, making sure he understood how much I'd shouldered on my own. Unfazed, I resumed drafting the divorce papers, resolute. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew they would no longer be mine to carry. My name is Sarah, a 43-year-old part-time worker and homemaker. Peter, my soon-to-be ex-husband, is 4 years older, and we've been married for a decade. We met at our old company when I was fully dedicated to my career with little thought for marriage or romance. But at 32, a friend urged me to switch jobs, which led me into a new chapter of my life. Shortly afterward, Peter, a senior colleague from my previous job, confessed his feelings for me. From the start, our relationship was seen through the lens of marriage. Despite my hesitations, we married 3 years later, largely due to family pressure. Peter's parents were very supportive, treating me like a daughter, which helped me settle into married life. A year into our marriage, we built a house together, a symbol of our shared dreams, despite the heavy loan and long-term repayment plan. In those early years, we were a typical working couple, supporting each other's ambitions and managing finances together. But 4 years into the marriage, just as we started talking about having children, Peter announced he was quitting his job to start his own business. A lifelong dream of his, he had hoped to become an entrepreneur by the time he was 41 and had been quietly making connections and saving for it. The news was a shock, as he had already resigned before telling me. It hurt to know he hadn't included me in such a major decision, especially since he expected my income to cover us during his transition. Shortly after launching his business, a family crisis struck. My father-in-law became gravely ill, needing extended hospital care. We quickly realized he wouldn't be able to return home without significant modifications to accommodate his condition. Though my in-laws insisted they could handle it financially, Peter unilaterally decided that we would cover the costs of all the renovations. I wanted to support my family however I could, but taking on all these expenses was daunting. Our household costs soared, and I found myself reeling under the weight of our financial pressures. Peter's business struggled to gain traction, with frequent contract cancellations and few new opportunities. His income had dropped sharply, leaving me to cover our living expenses and the substantial loan payments on my own. Despite the near collapse of his earnings, Peter seemed strangely detached, brushing off my concerns as if the problem was someone else's. As our credit card debt began to mount, Peter continued his nights out, claiming they were essential for building client relationships. With debt piling up and our future clouded by financial strain, I suggested we consider drastic measures, either sell the house or shut down the business. Peter, ever the optimist, waved it off, insisting we just needed to persevere. In reality, we were barely scraping by on my steady income alone. I was shouldering the full weight of our finances, while Peter remained oblivious to the seriousness of our situation. Discussing it felt increasingly futile, as he dismissed my concerns as long as bills were covered on time. Gradually, our conversations faded, and though I knew Peter was seeing other women under the pretense of work, I felt a strange indifference toward him. One evening, after I returned home from work, Peter broke our long-standing silence. Smirking, he tossed a piece of paper onto the table in front of me and announced with smug satisfaction, "I've decided to divorce you. Please sign here." Peter's words, as he handed me the papers, hit with less impact than I expected. I took a deep breath, surprisingly calm, knowing that I'd been considering this step myself if he hadn't gotten there first. "Can we wait a moment? I just got home. Let's sit down in the living room to discuss this," I suggested. "So now you want to talk, but you're just dragging things out?" he replied, irritation lacing his voice. "I don't need pointless chit-chat. Just get it over with." Ignoring his impatience, I walked slowly to the living room, feeling his frustration build. I was determined to pace this final moment on my own terms, after everything else had unfolded on his. Divorce was now inevitable, and the life we had carefully built was slipping away. As I settled on the sofa, I picked up the papers again. They felt fragile in my hands, much like the marriage certificate we had signed 12 years ago, a piece of paper that had once meant so much. "How long are you going to sit there staring at them?" Peter's voice cut through my thoughts, edged with annoyance. "I wanted to discuss our plans after the divorce." "What do you intend to do?" I asked, meeting his eyes. "Are you reconsidering?" "Because I'm committed to moving forward," he replied dismissively. "No, I'm not reconsidering," I replied evenly. "But I think it's important we talk through the details. I've heard you're planning to remarry. There must be someone new in your life. I imagine she's young, attractive, maybe financially stable. Unlike me, an older woman without children to tie us together. He scoffed. You seem to think poorly of me. Let's be clear. I have always managed our finances carefully, ensuring you never had to worry about a single bill. I said, my voice steady, despite how much you've taken that for granted. In that moment, I realized that the person in front of me, once central to my life, had already become a stranger. The future I was about to step into felt clearer than ever. I believe I'll be better off without you, I said calmly, feeling an unexpected sense of relief. Honestly, this divorce is a weight lifted. I'll ignore your harsh words as nothing more than frustration from someone who's feeling defeated. There's no more to say, and soon, I won't have to see you again. Please be sure to move out by the end of the week. Actually, I'm leaving today. I can't stand listening to you any longer, Peter replied with a sneer. Oh, and in case you're wondering, my new partner knows about the debts. She's agreed to pitch in $1,000 a month for our living expenses. Should it be too hard for her, unlike it was for you? Once I signed the papers, I gathered the last of my things. I'm leaving immediately. The furniture can stay. Consider it part of the asset division. Feel free to get rid of it if it's useless to you, I said, handing him a note with detailed loan information. You might want to share this with her, I added, giving him a final, steady look. With that, I walked out, got into my car, and drove away from what was once our home. My destination was clear, City Hall, to submit the divorce papers. Relief washed over me, the weight of years finally lifting. As I drove, I realized how much sooner I should have made this choice, and how I'd wasted so much time worrying about him and the financial burdens he'd left behind. A week later, I woke to my phone buzzing insistently. Peter. I'd expected he'd reach out eventually, but the repeated calls were more irritating than anything else. Finally, I answered. I decided to answer the phone. What do you want? I asked, trying to keep my irritation in check. I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't important, he replied, defensive. But, is it true what I heard about the $6,000? I sighed. I have no reason to lie about this. Are you expecting me to cover your debts now? Everything you need to know is in that note I left. I'm calling because I still don't get it, even after reading it, he said, frustration seeping into his voice. Taking a deep breath, I prepared to explain. All right, let me break it down. Besides the mortgage, there are other expenses. The renovation costs for your parents' home, the personal loan for your father's medical bills, the business loan from your venture, and all the credit card debt, all of it in your name. If it were just the mortgage, I might have managed. But there's far more, and now that we're divorced, it's no longer my responsibility. I told you when I left, there's a $6,000 monthly payment due, I reminded him. You spent money recklessly, and now it's catching up to you. Did you ever think about those payments? Well, now they're yours to handle, alongside your new girlfriend. Isn't that why you divorced me in the first place? Actually, she broke up with me, Peter admitted quietly. She said $6,000 a month is too much. I figured as much, I replied. Even someone with a high income would hesitate to take on debt they didn't create. Did your salary increase after you changed jobs? Yes, it increased fivefold, he admitted, but all that extra income goes straight to repayments. It was clear he was finally beginning to realize the weight of what he'd signed up for. I had no idea you were making that much, I said, surprised. If I'd known, I might not have suggested the divorce. It's not like you didn't know, he countered. You just weren't interested. After I changed jobs, you never once asked about my work or my salary. You should have brought it up yourself, I replied. You barely communicated even before you started making more. When you had little to no income, you still spent as if there was no limit. He sighed, frustration evident. Let's start over. Come back to me. I can't, I stated firmly. I finally reclaimed my freedom. But $6,000 a month in payments is unmanageable. Why don't we sell the house? You could use some of your income to pay down the debts, he suggested. Why should I? I responded, my voice calm. I have no part in those debts. I'm not interested in a stranger's financial burdens. You're incredibly cold, he said, his tone wounded. Don't you have any empathy? Maybe I do seem cold, I replied, but I've made payments on those debts for over 7 years. At first, it was for love, but then it was out of duty to your parents. You wanted the divorce. You chose this path. I took a deep breath. Technically, I could sell the house, divide our assets, and even file for alimony due to your infidelity. But honestly, I just want my peace. I'm exhausted from covering your reckless spending. My life is finally mine. With that, I ended the call. After our conversation, Peter stopped reaching out. The relief was immense. I later learned he'd lost both his job and the house and had to devise a new repayment plan. Going back to his old job wasn't easy under everyone's scrutiny, and his loan payments remained a constant burden. His parents, unfortunately, had to sell their home and move into a retirement facility. Knowing they wouldn't have had to make such a difficult decision if we hadn't divorced, I decided to help. I assisted with their move and contributed financially to cover the entry fees, a small way to repay the kindness they'd shown me. I genuinely hope they can now find some peace, free from that financial weight. As for me, I've embraced a simpler, frugal lifestyle and am comfortably building my savings. I'm exploring investment options to secure my financial future, and life with my new partner, whom I met after the divorce, feels fulfilling both personally and professionally. At last, I'm finding the happiness I had been missing for so long. My name is Emma, and for most of my life, I believed that if you worked hard and treated people well, everything would turn out all right. I'd spent over a decade building a stable career in financial analysis, carefully climbing up the ranks. I lived in a modest but comfortable two-bedroom condo in Chicago, which I'd saved for over the years. Life felt stable, and for a while, I thought I had everything I needed. But there was one thing missing. I'd always hoped to share my life with someone who truly understood and appreciated me. I wanted a partner, someone who respected my independence and ambitions. So when I met Tom, I thought I finally found that. Tom was charming and intelligent, and we connected on so many levels. We shared the same values, or so I thought, and he seemed to genuinely respect my independence. I've been so careful in choosing who I let into my life, and Tom felt like a safe bet. I truly believed he'd be different from other men who felt threatened by my independence. After dating for a while, Tom introduced me to his family. His mother, Alice, was a retired school principal. She was 65 but looked younger, with a sharp gaze that seemed to cut through the air around her. Alice was one of those people who walked into a room and instantly took control of it. From what Tom had told me, she'd been a single mother most of his life and was fiercely proud of him. When I met her, I tried my best to make a good impression, and for a brief moment I thought I had. She was polite, but there was a certain edge to her that made me feel like I was being analyzed with every word I said. Tom and I got engaged within a year. I was thrilled, thinking this was the start of a new chapter. I remember feeling incredibly lucky that I found a man who supported my career and seemed to appreciate the life I'd built on my own. But as the wedding day approached, Alice became more present in our lives. She'd offer unsolicited advice on everything from the wedding colors to the guest list, often implying that her way of doing things was simply better. Tom would shrug it off, saying it was just her personality, but something about her constant interference gnawed at me. On our wedding day, as I walked down the aisle, I caught Alice's eyes watching me. There was something unsettling in her expression, a sort of critical judgment I couldn't shake, but I brushed it off, telling myself I was just nervous. After all, this was the happiest day of my life, right? After we got married, Tom and I decided to move into my condo temporarily, planning to buy a larger home together. It felt exciting to have a shared dream. But that's when Alice started showing up, often without notice. She'd comment on my choice of decor, my cooking, or even the layout of the condo. At first, I brushed it off, trying to keep the peace. Maybe she was just trying to help, I told myself. One evening, Tom and I were having dinner when Alice showed up with a bottle of wine and a strange suggestion. "Why don't you two move into a house closer to me?" she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "That way, I can help out more, especially once the grandkids come along." I felt uneasy, but Tom seemed to like the idea. He assured me it was just temporary, that it would be nice to have some help nearby, and I reluctantly agreed to start looking at homes in her neighborhood. We found a beautiful, spacious house that was, admittedly, closer to Alice's than I would have liked. But Tom was thrilled, so I told myself it would be worth it. We moved in, and for a while, things seemed all right. But then Alice began asserting herself even more. She dropped by frequently, often with bags of groceries or other things she thought we needed, and give unsolicited advice on everything. She'd rearrange the kitchen cupboards, comment on my wardrobe choices, and even rearrange our living room furniture while I was at work. When I mentioned this to Tom, he'd just laugh, saying, "You know how moms are." Months passed, and I felt increasingly uncomfortable in my own home. Then, one evening, I got news that would change everything. I was pregnant. I was overjoyed. I thought this would bring our family closer and that perhaps Alice's involvement would now have a purpose. But when we shared the news with her, her reaction was strange. Instead of excitement, she looked at me with a critical gaze and said, "Well, I hope you're ready for the responsibility. It's not just about you anymore." As my pregnancy progressed, Alice's helpfulness turned into control. She began coming over almost daily, reorganizing things, making lists of what a proper mother should do, and offering her expert advice on everything. She'd question what I ate, comment on my prenatal appointments, and make snide remarks about my choices. I began feeling like a guest in my own life. Things reached a breaking point one afternoon. I came home to find Alice going through my personal papers in our bedroom. When I confronted her, she calmly explained that she was just checking to make sure everything was organized for the baby. My privacy had been violated and I felt furious. I tried talking to Tom, but he brushed it off saying, "She just wants to help." I was heartbroken. The man I married was supposed to support me, but it felt like he was choosing his mother over me. I felt isolated and began questioning my entire relationship. One night, just as I was entering my third trimester, I came home from a long day at work. The house was dark, which was unusual because Tom was usually home by then. I tried the door, but it was locked. After knocking, Alice opened it, her expression cold and unwelcoming. "Emma," she said, "we need to talk." She led me into the living room, where Tom was sitting, looking down, avoiding my gaze. My heart pounded as I sat across from them, feeling a sense of dread. Alice looked at me with a steely expression and said, "We believe it's best if you transfer ownership of the house to Tom. It's for the security of the family, after all. You'll be focusing on the baby soon, and this way, Tom will be able to handle everything." I was stunned. "This is our home," I said, my voice shaking. "I've invested just as much as Tom has. This is supposed to be a partnership." But Alice was relentless. She looked at me with an icy gaze and said, "If you truly cared about this family, you'd do what's best for it. Holding onto the house in your name shows a lack of trust." She went on, implying that I was selfish for not prioritizing Tom's security. Tom remained silent, his eyes on the floor. I felt a sense of betrayal that I couldn't put into words. This was supposed to be the man I loved, the man that promised to be my partner. And yet, here he was, letting his mother push me around. I told them both that I needed time to think and went to bed, feeling alone and heartbroken. The next morning, things got even worse. As I was getting ready for work, Alice cornered me, again pressing the issue of the house. I firmly told her that I wouldn't be signing anything over and that we bought the house as partners. She glared at me, a look that sent a chill down my spine. "You're making a big mistake, Emma," she said, her voice low and dangerous. That night, I came home to find my belongings packed in boxes. Alice stood there, smugly informing me that Tom had agreed I should leave until I was ready to put the family first. I couldn't believe it. They were throwing me out of my own home, the place I'd worked so hard to build with Tom. I was devastated, but I knew I couldn't stay where I wasn't wanted. I spent the next few days staying with a close friend, trying to make sense of everything. I wanted to cry, but more than that, I felt anger building inside me. How had I let myself get so trapped? But as the initial shock wore off, I began to feel a new sense of clarity. I realized that I had to take control of my life. I wasn't going to let Alice or anyone else manipulate me. With the help of my friend Leah, who was also a lawyer, I started gathering evidence of Alice's behavior and Tom's complicity. I documented every instance of manipulation and harassment, determined to protect what was mine. Leah helped me file for divorce, and we prepared for the court battle that lay ahead. The day of the hearing, I walked into the courtroom with Leah by my side. Tom and Alice were there, both looking smug, as if they'd already won. But I was determined to fight for myself and my future. As Leah presented our case, detailing the emotional abuse and manipulation I'd endured, I watched the judge's expression shift from neutral to one of concern. When it was my turn to speak, I recounted everything I'd been through, describing how Alice had tried to control every aspect of my life and how Tom had chosen his mother over me. I told the court that I was standing up not just for myself, but for every person who had ever been manipulated or controlled by someone else. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. I was awarded full ownership of the house and a significant portion of our shared assets. Tom and Alice were left stunned, their smug expressions replaced by shock and disbelief. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had taken back control of my life, and I knew I'd never let anyone make me feel powerless again. This experience had been painful, but it had also made me stronger. And as I looked ahead, I felt ready to face whatever challenges life might bring my way. Growing up, I always felt overshadowed by my older sister Lily. Our house was like a stage set up for her, a place filled with family members, friends, and relatives who'd gather regularly, drawn in by my mom's legendary barbecue and the promise of a Lily performance. Our backyard, with its neatly trimmed lawn and the big oak tree as a backdrop, became her stage. Dad would fire up the grill, the smell of sizzling meat and charcoal filling the air, while Mom made sure everyone had drinks in hand. Lily, sweetie, Aunt Marge would call out above the chatter. How about a song for us? Just like that, all eyes would turn to Lily. She'd jump onto a chair, golden curls bouncing, and launch into her best impression of Scalene Diane, belting out, "My heart will go on." The adults would go wild, clapping and cheering as if they were at a real concert. Mom and Dad would beam with pride, Dad even wiping away a tear. And me, I'd be somewhere off to the side, trying my best to blend in with the bushes. It wasn't that I didn't want to join in, but whenever I tried singing, it sounded like a cat caught in a blender. And poetry, forget it, words tangled on my tongue, leaving me red-faced and stammering. Relatives would whisper that I was nothing like my sister. Even Mom and Dad made it clear who the real star of the family was. While Lily got shuttled to dance classes, singing lessons, and art workshops, I was left to my own devices. I didn't mind though. I found solace in the dusty old books lining my shelves. The only person who seemed to understand was Great Aunt Maggie. She'd often find me hiding behind the garage or up in the treehouse, nose buried in a book. "What adventure are you on today, Cameron?" she asked, settling down beside me. I'd look up, grateful for her company. "Ancient Egypt," I'd say, showing her the cover of my latest read. Aunt Maggie's eyes would twinkle. "You've got a good head on your shoulders, girl. Don't let anyone tell you different." Those quiet moments with her were a balm to my soul, reminding me I didn't have to perform to be worthy. Still, being the forgotten child stung, especially every time Lily mastered a new song or won an award. My parents showered her with praise and gifts, new clothes, the latest gadgets. Meanwhile, I'd get hand-me-downs and tired sighs of exasperation. School became my sanctuary. I wasn't exactly popular, but I found my place in the classroom. I was determined to understand everything the teacher said, staying after class to ask questions or seeking out extra reading material when I needed more. By high school, all my hard work paid off. I was top of my class, finally excelling at something in my own right. I even made a few friends who didn't mind my quiet nature. But as graduation approached, our house became Lily Central. Mom was constantly helping her put together a portfolio for a fancy advertising and PR program. "Oh honey, this campaign idea is perfect," Mom would gush, flipping through Lily's work. I'd roll my eyes and retreat to my room, burying myself in my studies. But one night, during yet another family dinner centered around Lily's college plans, something in me snapped. "I'm going to college too," I blurted out. "I want to study management." Silence. Then, to my shock, they burst into laughter. "Oh, sweetie," Mom said, wiping tears of mirth from her eyes. "We don't have money for that. You'll need to get a job after graduation. You're just not as gifted as your sister." I felt like I'd been slapped, but "I'm the top student in my class," I stammered, anger and embarrassment mixing on my face. "I get straight A's." I stormed to my room, grabbed my report card, and slammed it down on the table. Everyone leaned in, their eyes widening in surprise. "Well, I'll be damned," Dad muttered, scratching his head. "When did this happen?" "It's been happening for years." I spat, feeling tears prick at my eyes. Mom looked ashamed, but Dad cut her off. "Look, it doesn't change anything. We've spent all our savings on Lily's education. There's nothing left for you, Cameron. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. You'll go work at my cousin Frank's restaurant after graduation." I turned and ran, ignoring their calls. In my room, I collapsed onto my bed, sobs shaking my body. But as I cried, something inside me hardened. Fine, I thought. I would find a way on my own. My hands clenched into fists. If they won't help me, I'll find another way. I'll show them what Cameron can do. The next few months blurred by. Lily left for college, surrounded by tearful goodbyes and proud embraces. Meanwhile, I buried myself in my studies with a fierce determination to graduate at the top of my class. More and more, I found myself at Great Aunt Maggie's cozy little house, my sanctuary from the tension at home. One sunny afternoon, as we sipped tea in her sunlit kitchen, she asked the question I'd been dreading. "So, Cameron," she said, her kind eyes fixed on me. "What are your plans after graduation?" I stared into my teacup, swallowing hard. I don't know, Aunt Maggie," I admitted, my voice breaking. "Mom and Dad won't help me with college. They said there's nothing left after paying for Lily." Maggie was quiet for a moment, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Cameron, dear, I've saved up a bit, and I'd like to give it to you for college. You're smart as a whip, and I'll be damned if I let that brain of yours go to waste." Her words hit me like a wave, and I burst into tears, overwhelmed by her generosity and the realization that my dreams weren't dead after all. "Thank you, Aunt Maggie," I sobbed, hugging her. "Thank you so much." Graduation came quickly, and when I walked across the stage to accept my diploma, I saw Aunt Maggie beaming in the crowd. My parents were there too, looking proud but a little uncomfortable. That evening, while I pored over college brochures, Mom came into my room, her voice syrupy sweet. "Cameron, honey, your father's cousin Frank has a waitressing job for you at his restaurant. Isn't that exciting?" I took a deep breath. "Actually, Mom, I won't need that job. I'm going to college." Dad appeared in the doorway, frowning. "And how exactly do you plan to pay for that?" "Aunt Maggie's helping me," I replied, holding my head high. "She's giving me her savings for tuition." The silence that followed was almost comical. Then Dad's face turned red with anger. "Absolutely not," he snapped. "If Maggie's got money to spare, it should go to Lily. She needs a car for her advertising job next year." "Are you serious?" I shot back, barely able to believe what I was hearing. "This is my chance to make something of myself." "Don't be selfish, Cameron," Mom chimed in. "Your sister needs that money more than you do." I straightened my back, my voice shaking but firm. "This is my money now, and I'm using it for college. End of discussion." From that moment on, life at home became unbearable. My parents either ignored me or snapped at me over the smallest things. After a particularly heated argument, I called Aunt Maggie, fighting back tears as I told her everything. "Pack your bags, sweetheart," she said without hesitation. "You're moving in with me." The next day, I packed my things into a cab and left, watching my childhood home shrink in the rearview mirror. As I arrived at Aunt Maddie's house, a weight lifted off my shoulders. The summer flew by, and soon, I was stepping onto the campus of State University. Thanks to my grades and Aunt Maddie's help, I've been accepted into the management program I'd always dreamed of. On the first day, as I sat in my introduction to business lecture, it felt surreal. I made it. I'm really here. A month into the semester, Aunt Maggie called me, her voice unusually hesitant. "Cameron, dear, I think you should sit down for this." My heart pounded as she told me about the latest family drama. Lily had shown up at home, announcing she'd dropped out of college. She was pregnant. And to top it off, her boyfriend wasn't exactly thrilled. He discovered she'd been seeing his friend too, leaving them unsure of the father's identity. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, processing it all. Part of me felt a twisted satisfaction at seeing Lily, the golden child, fall from her pedestal. But mostly, I just felt sad for Lily, for the mess she'd gotten into, and for what might have been. And so, life moved on. Aunt Maggie kept me updated on the family gossip, but I tried to keep my focus forward, on my classes, on my new future, and on proving, once and for all, what Cameron could really do. I no longer attended family gatherings after Lily's baby was born. A DNA test confirmed her boyfriend was indeed the father, but instead of the fairy tale wedding Lily had envisioned, he only agreed to pay child support. The final blow came when Lily, desperate for work, took a waitressing job at Uncle Frank's restaurant, the very job my parents had tried to force on me. When I hung up the phone, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. A small, petty part of me wanted to gloat, to flaunt my success in front of them all. but mostly, I felt profound gratitude for where I was and how far I had come. Years flew by in a blur of lectures, exams, and late-night study sessions. Before I knew it, I was walking across the stage, clutching my hard-earned management degree. Scanning the crowd, I saw Aunt Mattie beaming at me, tears of pride in her eyes. Thanks to my top grades and glowing recommendations from my professors, I landed a job as a manager at the Gilded Fork, one of the city's most prestigious restaurants. The salary was beyond my wildest dreams, and for the first time, I truly felt successful. With my first paycheck, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I went to the electronics store and bought Aunt Mattie the latest smartphone. When I handed it to her, her face lit up in surprise. "Oh, Cameron," she gasped, turning the sleek device over in her hands. "This is too much." I grinned, pulling out my own phone. "Not at all. Now, let me show you how to use it." Over the next few weeks, I taught Aunt Mattie the ins and outs of social media. She took to it eagerly, especially enjoying Facebook's video feature. Soon, her page was filled with clips of her garden, her cat, and her famous apple pie at various stages of creation. I'd watch her videos during lunch breaks, always leaving a comment or a like. It was our way of staying connected, even when work kept me busy. One day, as I was preparing for the dinner rush, my phone buzzed with an unexpected call from my mother. We hadn't spoken in years. "Cameron," she began, her voice hesitant, "we were hoping you might come over to talk." After a long pause, I agreed. That Sunday, I found myself standing on the porch of my childhood home, hand hovering over the doorbell. Before I could press it, the door swung open, and my mother pulled me into a tight hug. "Oh, sweetie, it's so good to see you." Inside, I saw my father, Lily, and a little girl I assumed was my niece. The atmosphere was tense but not hostile, as I'd feared. "You look good, kiddo," my father said, his voice gruff but warm. "We hear you're doing well for yourself." I nodded, still wary. "I am. I'm a manager at the Gilded Fork now." Their eyes widened at the restaurant's name. My mother cleared her throat. "That's wonderful, dear. Actually, that's part of why we wanted to talk to you." Over the next hour, they apologized for how they had treated me, admitting they'd been wrong to dismiss my potential. Then came the real reason for the reunion. "Cameron," Mom said, glancing at Lily, "we were hoping. Well, we were wondering if you might be able to help Lily get a job at your restaurant." I looked at my sister, who was bouncing her daughter on her knee and avoiding my gaze. Finally, I nodded. "I'll see what I can do. No promises, but I'll ask." True to my word, I spoke to Mr. Reeves, the restaurant owner, about giving Lily a chance. To my surprise, he agreed, offering her a position as an administrator. Lily started the following week, and I watched her closely, half expecting her to fail. But to my shock, she excelled. She was punctual, efficient, and the customers loved her charm. Over time, we developed a cordial working relationship, though we weren't best friends by any means. Just when I thought I had everything figured out, the universe threw another curveball my way. This time, a positive one. One day, Mr. Reeves called me into his office. My heart raced, wondering if I'd done something wrong, but he grinned. "Cameron, how would you like to help me expand the business?" Before I knew it, I was overseeing the opening of not one but 3 new restaurants. My days were filled with staff meetings, menu tastings, and number crunching. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and everything I had ever dreamed of. The promotion came with a significant pay increase, and suddenly, I had more money than I knew what to do with. That's when the calls from my parents started. At first, it was small things. "The roof is leaking," Mom would say hesitantly. "We were wondering if you might be able to help out a little." Surprisingly, it felt good to say yes, to be able to solve their problems with a simple transfer of funds. It started with the roof, then a new water heater, and soon, I was funding a complete home renovation. As their financial situation improved thanks to my support, the infamous family parties resumed. But this time, things were different. "Have you heard about Cameron's latest project?" Mom would gush to the relatives. "She's opening a new restaurant downtown. We're so proud of her." I'd catch Lily's eye across the room, and she'd give me a small smile. She was doing well, too, having recently been promoted to head administrator at the Gilded Fork. "My girls," Dad would say, putting an arm around each of us, both making their old man proud. A part of me wanted to remind them of how they treated me before, but a larger part basked in their approval, something I had craved for so long. As I drove home that night, a sense of contentment washed over me. After all these years, I finally felt at peace. I had everything I'd dreamed of: a successful career, respect, and finally, appreciation from my family. I felt like I was truly standing on my own. But one lazy Sunday, as I sipped my coffee and scrolled through Facebook, my world came crashing down. Aunt Maddie had posted a video from one of the family gatherings I'd missed. I clicked, expecting laughter and chatter, but instead, I heard something that made my blood run cold. There were my parents, flushed with alcohol and full of self-righteousness. My mother's voice, slurred but unmistakable, sneered, "And Cameron, that ungrateful little freeloader, she barely gives us anything. We're not made of money, you know." My father added, "That's right. Lily's the one keeping that fancy restaurant afloat. Cameron's just riding on her coattails." Some relatives nodded along, even adding their own criticisms. Lily sat in the corner, looking uncomfortable but not contradicting them. I stared at the screen, stunned. After everything I'd done for them, all the support I'd provided, how could they turn around and say such cruel things? Shaking, I scrolled down to the comments. My parents were pleading with Maddie to delete the video, but Maddie's response brought tears to my eyes. "I don't know how to delete videos, and even if I did, I wouldn't. It's time everyone saw the truth. Cameron's the one supporting you, and this is how you repay her kindness. Shame on you." For hours, I sat there replaying the video, reading the comments, each one a fresh wound. Finally, I picked up my phone and called Aunt Maggie. "Oh, Cameron, dear," she said gently. "I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. They've always been like this. You just weren't around to see it." That night, I made a decision. "I'm cutting them off," I told her firmly, despite the pain in my voice. "No more money. No more help. They made their bed. Now they can lie in it." The days that followed were hard. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from my parents. At first, they apologized, begging me to forgive them. But when I didn't respond, their tone turned sharp. "We're your parents. You owe us." Each message twisting the knife. I held firm. I'd given them so many chances, and they'd thrown them all away. Surprisingly, Lily stayed out of it. At work, she was professional and distant, and when I asked her about it, she said, "I'm not taking sides. It's between you and them." I nodded, grateful for her neutrality, even though part of me wished she would stand up for me. In the months that followed, Aunt Maddie became my anchor. Our weekly calls became my highlight, her stories of gardening and baking bringing a sense of normalcy. She reassured me, "You're doing the right thing, Cameron. Don't let them manipulate you anymore." Other relatives began reaching out too. Cousin Sarah sent a heartfelt email, and Uncle Bob, my father's brother, called out of the blue. "Kid, your parents are fools if they don't see how incredible you are. You've got family in your corner." These messages of support helped heal the wounds. I realized that while I might have lost my parents, I'd gained a family who truly appreciated me. As the year came to a close, Mr. Reeves called me into his office. Nervous, I braced myself, wondering if my family drama had affected my work. But instead, he smiled broadly and said, "Cameron, I'm retiring next year. I want you to take over as CEO." I stood there in shock. Are you sure?" He nodded, more sure than anything. "You've earned this. You're the reason this business has flourished." Walking out of his office, my mind spun with possibilities. The little girl who had once been overlooked and underestimated had grown into a woman who had not only exceeded everyone's expectations, but her own. While dining at an upscale restaurant, I found myself in an unexpectedly tense confrontation with my mother-in-law. She glanced at me dismissively, smirking with a wave of her hand, her contempt unmistakable. Frustration simmered within me, but I kept my composure. "Are you asking me to leave?" I asked, my voice steady despite the anger just beneath the surface. I was ready to walk out when she abruptly interjected, "Wait a minute. If you leave now, who will pay the bill? Hand over the money." Her tone was both arrogant and commanding. I responded with a calm smile. "Why should I pay for someone who's practically a stranger to me? My name is Emma. I'm 31 years old and I work in an office. My husband James and I usually have a harmonious life together, but his mother's intrusive and domineering behavior is a constant strain. Living nearby, she often drops by our home uninvited, always ready to critique from my cooking, which she claims isn't good enough for her son, to my housekeeping, which she deems inadequate. Despite knowing I work full-time, she often criticizes me for not keeping a perfect home, especially when she visits in the evenings. What's more frustrating is that she portrays a different persona around James, making it hard for him to see her true nature. He remains oblivious, believing her behavior to be harmless since he's never witnessed her harshness firsthand. The situation escalated further when she acquired a key to her house, courtesy of James, making it almost impossible to set the boundaries I desperately needed. She frequently uses this key to enter our home whenever she pleases, often to criticize my cooking or cleaning and to disparage me to our neighbors. It's become one issue after another with her. I've repeatedly told James that I'd prefer us to move further away, but he's been so focused on a major project at work that my concerns often go unnoticed. Then, unexpectedly, things began to shift. James received a promotion due to the success of his project, increasing our income and finally allowing him to consider a move. With this new financial stability, he's even started talking about the idea of starting a family, making me hopeful that we might finally establish the boundaries I've been longing for. I agreed, but I made it clear, if we were going to raise children, we needed a more family-friendly environment. Our current area lacks safe play spaces and had limited daycare options. After much discussion, my husband finally agreed that moving was the right choice. This decision brought me more joy than his promotion. However, my happiness was short-lived. The next day, my mother-in-law arrived unannounced, as usual, which immediately irked me, bracing myself for her criticisms. But this visit was different. She seemed excited and wanted to celebrate her son's promotion by inviting him to a lavish restaurant known for its exquisite cuisine and exceptional service. "That sounds nice, good for you," I replied, trying to remain polite. "You're still not very friendly," she remarked, then continued, "Anyway, I want you to come with us. Please join us." I tried to keep my options open without committing. "I'll see if I can, but it might not work out," I replied. "Don't say that. We want you to come," she insisted, brushing aside my hesitation. Her sudden eagerness for me to join, despite frequently excluding me from family outings, left me both puzzled and cautiously hopeful that maybe this could mark a shift in our relationship. Later, I brought it up with my husband. He explained that he'd already agreed to accompany her and that she'd taken the initiative to book the restaurant for all of us. "You're excited about this, right, Emma?" he asked with a hopeful tone. I decided to be honest. "Actually, I'm not. I'm worried about the expense at such an upscale place. Maybe you could let them know I'm busy and just go without me." "Why are you being so negative?" he replied, disappointed. "It's not just us. My brothers and their wives will be there too. It would be strange if you didn't come and celebrate with everyone." His enthusiasm was clear, but it felt like he wasn't really listening to my concerns. It was as though he was siding with his mother's wishes over mine. If that was the case, I had a backup plan. I had purchased a small voice recorder online to discreetly capture any unkind remarks she might make during the evening. If she acted out, I'd play it back for my husband to help him understand the situation. If he still took her side after that, it might be time to reassess our relationship. Though this decision gave me some peace, the idea of joining them at the restaurant felt daunting, and I couldn't help but sigh at the thought. Additionally, I barely knew my husband's brothers, making the prospect even more unsettling. I had only briefly met my husband's brothers and their wives at our wedding, and our interactions had been limited to polite hellos. When we arrived at the restaurant, a waiter led us to a spacious room where my mother-in-law, one of my husband's brothers and his wife, along with another brother and his wife, were already seated. The table was elegantly set, creating an atmosphere for what was meant to be a celebratory dinner. However, confusion arose when my husband noticed there was only one empty chair at the table. He looked puzzled, wondering if there had been a mistake with the seating arrangement. "Did the waiter mess up?" "I'll go check," he said before leaving the room. As soon as he stepped out, everyone at the table began to eat, and that's when my mother-in-law turned to me with a harsh glare. "There's no seat for you. Why would I invite someone who just married into our family to this celebration? Here's your choice. Do you want to be part of our family, or do you want to leave and never come back? What's it going to be?" Without a moment's hesitation, I replied firmly, "No, I'm leaving." My mother-in-law seemed momentarily taken aback, as if she had expected me to beg for her acceptance. Instead, she threw out another challenge. "Listen, if you pay for everyone's meal here, I'll accept you as part of James's family. You must be upset about being treated like a stranger, so pay up and become family." I had already made my decision. I told you I'm leaving. Why should I pay for someone else's family meal? I shot back, stating to leave. In response, my mother-in-law slammed her hand on the table, shouting, "Don't you understand? I'm trying to make you part of the family. Are you okay with being the stranger? Pay up." "No, I'm fine being a stranger, and since I am one, I'm not paying for your meal. Goodbye." I walked away swiftly, but she tried to catch up to me. By the time she reached the door of the room, I was already at the exit. Once home, I considered emailing my husband about the incident when he returned just 15 minutes later. "The reservation was correct, and my mom is causing a scene," he explained after learning the truth from his brother. "I heard everything from my brother. I'm sorry you had to go through that," he added, his tone filled with concern. "You came back quickly," I remarked, relieved but still distressed by the events. "It seemed like she would have caused a scene whether you stayed or left." "How could I sit with them after they insulted you?" he replied, his understanding of the situation reassuring me. This confrontation seemed to have a ripple effect. It appeared to awaken a realization among my husband's brother's wives who had previously felt they had to silently endure such treatment. Inspired by my stand against my mother-in-law's attitude, they too began to assert themselves. Soon after, they left the restaurant with their husbands. Predictably, my mother-in-law didn't take this well. Within hours, my phone began ringing incessantly with her calls. Despite my attempts to ignore them, the constant ringing forced me to block her number. Unfortunately, the quiet didn't last long. I received a call from an unknown number, and the voice on the other end introduced himself as a police officer from a nearby station. "Hi, sorry for calling so late. Is this Emma's phone?" he asked. He then explained that after everyone had left the restaurant, my mother-in-law had attempted to dine alone but insisted that I should cover the bill. When the restaurant staff refused her request to defer payment, believing I wouldn't return after my angry departure, she found herself in a difficult situation. The restaurant suggested she pay with a card, but she had neither a credit card nor enough cash to cover the costs of everyone's meals. After trying to reach out to other family members for help, her frustration escalated quickly. She began yelling, blaming me for her predicament, and in her rage, she started damaging the restaurant's property, including expensive vases and flower pots. This commotion led the staff to call the police. Despite the officers' attempts to calm her down, she insisted on her innocence and continued her tirade. Now the restaurant faced not only an unpaid bill but also the aftermath of my mother-in-law's outbursts. They requested that someone take her home. Feeling somewhat responsible after hearing the officer's account, my husband and I reluctantly headed back to the restaurant. Upon our arrival, we found the police still trying to soothe my mother-in-law. With her arms crossed, she glared at me and burst out, "You're useless. This happened because you didn't pay the bill. It's only right to help your mother. Pay up now." I was stunned by her audacity, especially in the presence of law enforcement. The officer then informed us that if no one was willing to take her home, they would have to detain her for causing a disturbance and damaging property. The situation had spiraled far beyond a simple family disagreement, highlighting the severe consequences of her unchecked behavior. Faced with the prospect of the police either driving her to her house or arresting her for not settling the restaurant bill, I firmly replied, "Take her away. Arrest her or whatever. Just make her take responsibility." My mother-in-law looked at me in disbelief. "How can you say something so heartless? I can't believe it. Just pay the bill. It's not good to have a family member arrested," she pleaded. "I don't care. I'm not family, and I don't want to be around someone who acts crazy and causes trouble," I retorted, ready to leave the restaurant and let the authorities handle the situation. My husband, who had remained silent until now, gave me a stern look. "I know what happened to Emma was wrong, but is it worth getting arrested over?" he asked. "That's not the point," I replied, exasperated. "She's in trouble because she didn't pay the bill and caused a scene. It has nothing to do with me. Are you saying it's my fault for not paying for 5 people's meals when I didn't even eat?" My husband didn't respond but walked past me to speak with the police and restaurant staff. I sensed what he was about to do, and in a last-ditch effort to assert my stance, I prepared to voice my thoughts once more. I called out to him, "If you pay for her meal and bail her out, we're getting divorced. Think about that." However, he continued without a word, pulling out his wallet. Defeated, I sighed and left the restaurant. I walked home, packed my things, and prepared to leave. Just before the day ended, my husband returned looking worn out. "Mom's not getting arrested. It turns out she was wrong. The restaurant agreed to forgive her if I came back and promised she wouldn't return, he explained. I hadn't brought enough money, so I called my brothers for help. As he recounted the details of his day, I remained unmoved, barely reacting to his words. Noticing the bags I was packing, he asked, bewildered, "What's with the bags?" "I'm getting ready to leave because we're getting divorced. I told you if you took her side, we'd get divorced. You can't pretend you didn't hear me," I said firmly, packing my things while he looked on in surprise. Then he raised his voice, "What's going on? You've been acting weird all day. I know Mom did something bad, but why do we have to get divorced? I already told you I'm being mistreated. Even when you see proof and hear others talk about it, you still choose your almost arrested mom over me. Is it weird that I want to divorce someone like that? I've had enough." Exhausted from having to defend my decision yet again, I packed faster, determined to leave. My husband continued to speak, his voice filled with confusion and distress, not fully grasping the depth of the rift between us. Having resolved to move on from our tumultuous relationship, I quickly prepared to leave and gather the necessary paperwork for a divorce. The next morning, I signed the divorce papers. Though my husband was reluctant to end our marriage, he ultimately signed them too when faced with the prospect of legal action. I submitted them without delay, finally ready to embrace my independence. Soon after our separation, my husband moved out and returned to his parents' home. Having relied on me for most household chores, he struggled to maintain a tidy living space. Frustrated by the mess, he decided to cancel his apartment lease and move back in with his parents. His brothers followed suit after he reached out for financial assistance to repay the restaurant bill. This led to significant conflicts with their wives, who protested that they shouldn't have to pay for a debacle they hadn't caused. The brothers, siding with their mother, used their own money to help without consulting their spouses, deepening the rift and leading to accusations of being unreasonable and fears of legal consequences. Their dismissive attitudes toward their wives caused rapid deterioration in their marriages. Facing similar disputes, the brothers too returned to their parents' home, lamenting their struggles to manage their households. This entire saga turned my mother-in-law and her sons into the talk of the neighborhood. Rumors spread that the brothers had been abandoned by their wives. My mother-in-law dismissed such talk as nonsense and tried to paint us as ungrateful and undutiful. The estranged husbands echoed her sentiments, smugly blaming the failed marriages on their wives while feeling confident that divorcing was the right choice. Fortunately, I had maintained strong relationships with my neighbors who saw through these narratives. My mother-in-law gained an unfavorable reputation for her poor parenting, having failed to instill proper values or independence in her sons. Meanwhile, the husbands were now seen as mama's boys, notorious for prioritizing their mother over their spouses. This entire situation highlighted the underlying issues within the family and reinforced the community's perception of the true dynamics at play. Despite attempts from my exasperated mother-in-law and the husbands to reconnect, I had already changed my contact information and relocated to a new area, effectively disappearing from their radar. They likely continued to grumble about losing contact, but for me, the absence of my mother-in-law's stressful presence is a tremendous relief. In this new chapter of my life, making new friends has been incredibly transformative. During the process of my divorce, I forged strong bonds with the ex-wives of my husband's brothers. United by our mutual frustrations with the matriarch of their family, we found solace and camaraderie in each other's company. Now we frequently spend time together, enjoying meals out, shopping, and relaxing on weekends. Interestingly, I might owe a nod of gratitude to my ex-husband for inadvertently introducing me to such wonderful people. It feels liberating to pursue our interests without interference. The simplicity of this newfound freedom is refreshing, allowing us to live our lives on our own terms, far removed from the negative influences of people like my former mother-in-law. I'm immensely thankful for these friendships. Without this supportive group, I might still be navigating solitude, but they have brought joy and companionship into my life, and I'm hopeful that our bonds will last a lifetime. I walked into the house after a long day at work, eager to relax, but something didn't feel right. The usual peace I hoped for was missing. As I passed by our small office, there he was, Greg, my husband, sitting at the desk, papers spread out in front of him. And not just any papers, my personal files, bank statements, and journals. The realization hit me like a punch. My heart pounded as I tried to make sense of what he was doing. What? What are you doing, Greg? I asked, my voice quivering with a mix of anger and disbelief. He looked up slowly, not the least bit apologetic. Just checking on things, Emma, he replied calmly, his tone patronizing. With the baby coming, I need to know everything's in order. His nonchalance stirred a deep anger within me, one I had tried to bury for too long. You have no right to go through my things, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to hold onto whatever shred of respect I had left for him. Greg barely flinched. Instead, he leaned back, crossing his arms as if I were the one overreacting. Emma, your finances are our finances. If there's a problem, it's my business too. You're about to be a mother, and you're acting like I don't have a right to know. Don't we all need to be responsible here? His words were smooth, like he'd rehearsed them, but the look in his eyes was hard. He was crossing a line he didn't even seem to see. But it wasn't just about today. This was about the months I'd spent watching Greg and his mother, Susan, slowly take control of my life, invading my personal space, my decisions, and even my thoughts. That evening, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, Greg snoring peacefully beside me, while my mind raced, replaying our conversation and every red flag I'd ignored. Since the moment Susan had moved in temporarily to help with the pregnancy, my life had felt like a tightrope walk. And yet, in every decision, Greg sided with her. If I wanted space, she needed to help. If I expressed a preference, I was being difficult. My wants and needs became secondary, and then, it seemed, they became invisible. The next day, I confided in my best friend, Rachel. We met at our usual coffee shop, a place where I felt like I could breathe. Rachel listened carefully, her eyes widening as I poured out everything I'd been holding back. The constant belittling, the passive-aggressive comments from Susan, the feeling of being trapped in my own home. Emma, she said finally, her voice soft but firm, you don't have to keep living like this. You're not alone. You deserve so much better than this. You deserve to be happy. Her words struck me, and a knot I hadn't realized was there loosened just a little. Rachel was right. I didn't have to keep suffering quietly, putting up with Greg's coldness and Susan's manipulations. That day, for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a life without them. A life where I had control over my choices, where I could raise my child in peace. I realized I needed help. I needed to find a lawyer and get my life back. A few days later, I walked into the office of a family attorney named Ben. The room was warm, filled with light from large windows, and the air felt calm and inviting. Ben looked to be in his mid-40s, with a kind smile and a reassuring presence. I felt a glimmer of hope as I sat across from him and explained my situation. I feel like I'm constantly being watched, I said, my voice breaking as I described Susan's overbearing presence, Greg's constant siding with her, and how they both managed to isolate me from friends and family. It's like they're trying to erase me. Ben listened intently, nodding with understanding. When I finished, he leaned forward. Emma, you're very brave for coming here today, he said. You're taking a necessary step for your well-being and your child's. But be prepared. Standing up to them won't be easy. They'll likely fight this. I'm ready, I replied, and in that moment, I meant it. I can't keep living like this. In the following weeks, Rachel helped me gather documents and create a plan. Each piece of evidence, every journal entry, every carefully saved message felt like a piece of armor. There were nights when I felt like I couldn't go on, when the weight of my decision threatened to pull me under. But each time, I thought of my future, and I thought of my baby. One night, I sat down with my parents and told them everything. They had sensed something was wrong, but they hadn't known the extent. Their support was unwavering, and the pride in my father's eyes as he told me, "You're stronger than you know," Emma, gave me the resolve I needed. Finally, the day of the hearing arrived. I barely slept, my stomach a bundle of nerves as I walked into the courthouse with Rachel and Ben beside me. The waiting area was filled with people, all facing their own battles. I tried to steady my breathing, reminding myself that this was my fight for freedom, for my life back. Greg and Susan were already seated when I entered the courtroom. Greg's face was hard, expressionless, while Susan's gaze was cold and sharp, her eyes calculating. She looked at me as though I were a stranger, but that's exactly what I'd become to her. I wasn't the submissive woman she'd wanted me to be. Ben leaned over and whispered, "Remember, Emma, you're here to tell your story, to claim back what's yours." I took a deep breath, feeling my strength return. I was ready. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the stand, my legs trembling but my mind sharp. I took a deep breath and started from the beginning. I married Greg because I loved him, and I thought we could build a life together. But things changed, I said, my voice steady. His mother moved in without asking me. Suddenly, every decision I made seemed to be a problem. I was treated like an outsider in my own home. The words came easier now, and I continued, describing the feeling of being pushed aside, of constantly being watched, of having every choice questioned and overruled. I shared how Susan would criticize every decision I made, how Greg would defend her no matter what, and how I'd been locked out of my own life. The judge listened intently, her gaze focused and empathetic. This isn't just about a house or a marriage, I said, fighting back tears. It's about the right to live freely and to raise my child in a home where I'm respected, where I'm safe. Greg's lawyer presented his side, painting me as overly sensitive, accusing me of trying to separate Greg from his family. They claimed Susan was only trying to help. But when I looked at the judge, I saw that she was listening, really listening to my words. She could see through their words, and that knowledge gave me strength. That night, just as I was beginning to feel some hope, Ben called. "Emma, we need to meet," he said, his voice serious. "Greg and Susan are planning to claim you're emotionally unstable. They're trying to prove you're unfit to be a mother." I felt anger rise within me, hot and unyielding. They're lying. I've done everything to hold this family together, and they're the ones tearing it apart. Ben nodded. "We'll gather more evidence. Their claims are desperate, and the judge will see that. But be prepared. They won't back down easily." Over the next few days, Rachel and I worked late into the night, gathering more proof. I combed through my journals, recounting every hurtful moment, every degrading comment. The memories were painful, but each one steeled my resolve. I would not let them win. Finally, the day of the final hearing arrived. The courtroom felt colder, the tension palpable. Greg and Susan sat across from me, their faces hardened. I could feel their resentment, their anger. But I was beyond caring. This was my fight, and I was ready to see it through. As I spoke, I laid bare every moment of manipulation, every instance of feeling like a prisoner in my own home. I described the pain of being isolated, the nights I'd spent crying in silence, feeling like I was disappearing. I could see the judge's expression soften, her brow furrowing as she absorbed my words. Finally, Greg's lawyer tried once more, repeating their claims of my supposed instability. But I saw the judge's expression shift. She wasn't buying it. When the judge delivered her verdict, her voice was calm but firm. "Based on the evidence and testimonies, I find that Emma has endured emotional abuse and manipulation. I am granting her full custody of her child and sole ownership of the home." The relief washed over me, so powerful I thought I might collapse. I'd won. I was free. In the weeks that followed, I moved back into my house, my true home, and started redecorating, reclaiming my space. Every brushstroke of paint, every new piece of furniture felt like a step forward, a small victory in rebuilding my life. And as I stood in what was now my baby's nursery, looking out the window with my hand on my growing belly, I whispered a promise to my child. "You'll grow up in a home filled with love and respect, a home where you can be anything you want to be." I knew my journey wasn't over, but I'd finally taken control. I was no longer lost. I was finally, truly free. Hannah suggested that I move into a budget-friendly apartment, believing my home-based activities didn't justify my living in the family house. Fresh from the city, she was determined to take my place in the home I shared with my in-laws. They never truly understood my work-from-home lifestyle, and now, with Hannah's influence, even my husband, William, seemed to conspire against me. It was disheartening that they didn't recognize that I was the one shouldering the mortgage for the house. The realization hit me hard. Why should I remain with people who made me feel unwanted? If they were so eager for me to leave, then that was exactly what I would do. I had reached my limit, and fueled by frustration, I decided to transfer the mortgage responsibilities to them. After making that choice, I ended my marriage with William and stepped away, unaware of the challenges they would soon face without me. My name is Amy. William, my husband, was 3 years older than me. Our paths crossed at work. But ours was no ordinary workplace romance. William worked for the janitorial service at my office. Life had dealt me a harsh blow when I lost both my parents in quick succession. My father fell ill and was given only 5 months to live. During his illness, my mother also succumbed to her own health problems. With their passing, I was left to navigate life alone, having no siblings or parents to turn to. The grief would often overwhelm me at unexpected moments, bringing me to tears. Yet I masked my sorrow with smiles, especially at work. The day William and I first truly connected, I was lost in thought by a window trying to hide my pain. Although we had exchanged nods before, we had never really talked. That day, William approached me, checking in on my somber mood. Opening up to him felt surprisingly easy, perhaps because he was somewhat of a stranger. When he learned about my parents, his empathy provided comfort. He shared his close relationship with his own parents, which helped me feel less alone in my sense of loss. This marked the beginning of our conversations and eventually our relationship outside of work. When we started dating, William introduced me to his parents, who welcomed me warmly and offered kindness in light of my situation. Our bond with his family deepened effortlessly, leading us to marriage without the need for a traditional proposal. After our wedding, we found a cozy apartment near his parents and embarked on a new life together, envisioning a future that might include starting a family. I shifted careers to a remote role for more flexibility. Although I shared this significant change with William, he didn't fully grasp what it entailed. He knew I worked from home, but the nuances of my job were a mystery to him. Despite the job change, my income remained stable, allowing me to cover our living expenses. William earned less, so we agreed he would save his earnings. His financial contributions were minimal, primarily because his social life was modest and inexpensive, mostly involving outings with me or friends. He was comfortable with me managing our finances, which suited us well. Working remotely brought many benefits, including the joy of sharing leisurely meals with William, a luxury I never had at my old job. Cooking had once been a simple affair, but eager to please him, I found delight in preparing more intricate meals. Our life together felt tranquil and fulfilling. However, a few years into our marriage, an unexpected crisis struck. A devastating fire destroyed William's childhood home, erasing cherished memories and belongings. Thankfully, his parents were safe, but the loss was immense. They moved in with us temporarily, and I sought to uplift them, much like they had supported me through my own parents' deaths. I took on additional household duties and made comforting meals while managing my work. Despite our best efforts to make them feel at home, William's parents were acutely aware of their dependence on us and expressed concerns about overstaying their welcome. They clearly longed for their independence, which led William and me to a significant decision. We would build a new home to accommodate all of us. Although we had never explicitly discussed this before, it felt right given our circumstances. I had been saving diligently, separate from William's savings, and the timing seemed perfect to use those funds to construct a new home, a place symbolizing a fresh start for his parents while honoring the past. The original house, a charming wooden structure built by my great-grandfather, held many memories but was no longer practical. Our decision to build a new house was met with joy and gratitude from William's parents, marking the beginning of an exciting new chapter for all of us. This collaborative effort was a testament to our family's resilience in the face of adversity. As William's parents aged, their health concerns grew, leading to numerous special requests for the new house we planned to build. Eager to ensure their comfort, William proposed several additional features, which of course drove the cost significantly higher than we had initially planned. Despite the escalating expenses, we were determined to make it work. I embraced the enhancements for our new home, believing in the long-term benefits they would bring. Around this time, I began to notice a shift in dynamics between William and his parents, Samantha and Tyler. He started to assert himself as the primary force behind the house's construction, and they frequently expressed their gratitude to him while overlooking my financial contributions entirely. Despite the mortgage and ownership documents being in my name and the down payment coming from my savings, it seemed William hadn't shared these details with them. His constant claims led his parents to pressure me into showing gratitude for something I felt I had rightfully contributed to. My contributions weren't about seeking acknowledgement from William, Samantha, or Tyler. I contributed more financially simply because I was able to, not out of a desire for thanks. However, William's failure to correct his parents' misconceptions, combined with his jokes about my supposed indebtedness to him, left me feeling deeply frustrated. I didn't demand he disclose the full extent of my contributions, but I hoped he would at least stop diminishing my role. Instead, he seemed emboldened by the house construction project, and to my dismay, I discovered he was spreading falsehoods about his employment, falsely claiming a connection to the prestigious company I was associated with. While he did have business interactions with them, the way he presented it was misleading. This pattern of dishonesty and inflated self-importance eroded my trust in him, making interactions with his parents increasingly uncomfortable as they seemed to favor him unconditionally. I had hoped moving into our new home would alleviate these tensions, but the opposite happened. Once we settled in, the underlying issues intensified. William and his parents failed to understand the legitimacy of my remote work, misinterpreting my home-based job as leisure. Complaints about my supposed idleness became more frequent, accompanied by insinuations that I should contribute more despite my financial support and ongoing work commitments. Their attitudes drove me to seek refuge outside our home, opting to work from a cafe just to escape the constant snide remarks. This change in my work environment was a direct response to the growing discomfort and misunderstanding within my own home, highlighting the deepening divide between us. I continually urged William to address his parents' misconceptions about my work. While he might not fully grasp the nature of my job, it was my income that sustained our household, including his parents. All I wanted was for him to communicate this simple truth to them. However, William dismissed my concerns, suggesting I ignore their comments. Consequently, with the perception that I wasn't working, I became burdened with all the household chores, and his parents began to treat me like their personal assistant. Reaching my breaking point, I confronted them, expecting William's support during my moment of distress. Instead, he rebuked me for speaking out and shockingly presented me with divorce papers as a threat to conform to their expectations. His unprecedented anger and ultimatum left me feeling powerless, forcing me to reluctantly acquiesce to their demands. Following this incident, both William and his parents became distinctly indifferent towards me, leaving me with only my work as a respite, a means to escape the harsh reality of my home life. During this tumultuous period, Hannah, William's sister, came to visit our new home and decided to extend her stay. Almost immediately, William's parents began to air their grievances about me to her, criticizing me for spending too much time isolated with my computer and insinuating that I was neglecting my responsibilities. I felt as though I was living off their generosity without contributing, and they mocked my dedication to my work, questioning its validity and jesting that I must be a nerd for being so engaged with technology, all while suggesting I did nothing meaningful. Their conversations took a demeaning turn as they speculated about my past role, incorrectly suggesting that I had been a cleaner at Williams' company. This speculation was fueled by Williams' deceitful claims about his employment, creating an inverted narrative where he was positioned as a high-ranking employee while I was cast as a menial worker. This fabricated reality left me isolated and discredited. When Hannah announced her decision to move in permanently after quitting her job in the apparel industry, citing a desire for change and the pleasure of starting a business from our new, more luxurious home, my situation worsened. Her decision was met with enthusiasm from William and his parents, further marginalizing me in my own home. I found myself relegated to eating alone, preparing meals for a family that no longer included me at their table, all while juggling my work responsibilities. This arrangement persisted until Hannah's departure date when she unexpectedly declared her intention to stay indefinitely, finding the house comfortable and seizing the opportunity to reset her career. Her announcement was celebrated by William's parents and William himself, who took pride in the praise for the house, solidifying my position as an outsider within my own home. Despite Hannah's recent decision to stay with us permanently, there was no specific room allocated for her. Until her announcement, she had been occupying the guest room, but her new permanent status required a more permanent solution, and our house lacked additional space. After spending 2 weeks with us, Hannah boldly stated her expectation for me to vacate. "I'll live here, so you should leave," she declared confidently, suggesting that my home-based lifestyle didn't merit a place in such a desirable home. She insinuated that I should find a less expensive living arrangement elsewhere. Samantha, aligning with Hannah, dismissed my attempts to explain the validity of my work, leaving me defenseless against their baseless judgments. The assertion that I was unproductive simply because I worked from home was a tactic used to pressure me unfairly. Frustration mounted within me as William passively observed the unfolding drama, neither defending the truth nor correcting the misconceptions. Up to this point, I had remained silent, mindful of William's feelings, but the situation compelled me to assert the truth openly. I confronted Samantha, Tyler, and Hannah, making it clear that the house was registered in my name, the mortgage payments were my responsibility, and the initial down payment had come from my savings, without any financial contribution from William. William's reaction was one of panic, quickly turning into defensive aggression as he attempted to further discredit me, desperately clinging to the facade he had built. His parents and Hannah stood by him, labeling me the liar. It became clear to me that leaving this toxic environment might be the only way to preserve my sanity, especially since they erroneously believed William could handle the financial burden of the household. Determined to extricate myself from this untenable situation, I reconsidered the divorce papers that William had once brandished as a threat. The prospect of transferring the house title to him initially seemed to please him, as he likely envisioned gaining full ownership without grasping the responsibilities that came with it. However, when it came time to change the mortgage into his name, William's true aversion to the complexities of the process became apparent. He naively thought it would be as simple as signing his name, unaware of the legal and financial implications involved. Reluctantly, I accompanied the oblivious William to the bank and to a legal advisor for the necessary consultations. Throughout the meeting, William was fixated on his smartphone, showing little interest until it was time to sign the documents. Eagerly, he asked if this would officially transfer the house into his name. Upon my confirmation, he signed with enthusiasm, completely oblivious to the realities of his new obligations. Once the legal procedures were finalized, the house, along with its mortgage responsibilities, would indeed be transferred to him. I had painstakingly explained the situation multiple times, yet I knew it would only be the full weight of his new role as the sole proprietor that would reveal the true extent of his misconceptions and the financial obligations he had underestimated. I couldn't help but marvel at William's reaction. Even after the transfer of the house and mortgage into his name, he jubilantly shared the news with Samantha, Hannah, and Tyler, still basking in the glow of his perceived success. It baffled me how they could continue to entertain the notion that William was employed by a prestigious company while viewing me as jobless. Watching this unfold filled me with disbelief and a sense of liberation, knowing my next steps were clear. Following the transfer, William planned a trip to celebrate the divorce, instructing me to vacate the house during their absence. They embarked on a lavish trip abroad, expecting me to disappear quietly. Instead, I took decisive action during those 12 days. I sold all the furniture and appliances I had brought into our shared home, packing my personal items as I finalized the sale of a luxurious condo on the top floor of a high-rise building, a place that felt like it had been waiting for me, priced at around $8 million. The timing felt serendipitous, and I seized the opportunity to make it mine. The 3 years spent in turmoil with William's family had taken their toll, but the prospect of starting anew in my condo filled me with excitement. Unbeknownst to them, I had a substantial inheritance from my parents that I had wisely invested over the years, significantly increasing my wealth. I had once dreamed of sharing this fortune with William and retiring early together, but I kept this secret, a decision I now regarded as fortuitous. Their disregard for financial prudence had taught me a painful lesson, reinforcing my choice to keep my assets hidden. Moving to the condo allowed me to design a living space that truly reflected my tastes, free from the influence and criticism of William and his family. This new home became my sanctuary, where I could work in peace, surrounded by cherished objects and memories, with no one to undermine my lifestyle. I looked forward to exploring new hobbies like joining a cooking class or yoga studio and embracing a tranquil life. Then, unexpectedly, I received a call from William upon his return. His voice was filled with shock and indignation as he discovered the absence of the furniture and appliances. He demanded their return, failing to understand that every item had been purchased with my money, thus it was my right to sell or move them as I pleased. I felt no obligation to leave behind any part of my life with them, wanting to sever all ties to a household that had brought me so much distress. In my new condo, I was truly free, ready to enjoy a life of peace and fulfillment far removed from the turmoil of the past. When I informed William that the items were already sold, he persisted, demanding I repurchase them. I countered by suggesting that someone with a job at a major corporation like him should have no trouble buying new ones. With that, I ended the call and ignored his subsequent attempts to contact me. 2 months after William and his family returned from their celebratory trip abroad, I had fully embraced my new life, forming friendships with my neighbors and enjoying various activities such as cooking classes recommended by a friend living just below my condo. One day, as I returned from a class, William called again, curious yet cautious. I answered, wondering if there was a lingering issue with the paperwork. His voice was filled with panic and confusion, echoing the chaos of their return. He was upset over discovering the monthly loan repayment amount of $6,100 and questioned why the loan hadn't been settled. He seemed completely unaware of the financial responsibilities that now lay with him, despite the bank's thorough explanation, which he had clearly ignored. His disbelief that the mortgage wasn't paid off revealed just how little attention he had paid during the transfer process. I vividly recalled sitting beside him, observing his disinterest, and now he was frantically seeking a way out of his new obligations. But it was too late. He had already signed the mortgage over to his name. William's realization that he was solely responsible for the loan repayments marked a turning point. His assumption that I would be struggling after the divorce was utterly baseless. I had managed our finances throughout our marriage, ensuring a comfortable life for both of us. Reflecting on the past 5 months, I pondered William's lifestyle with his family, likely living beyond their means under Hannah's influence until the reality of the mortgage finally hit them. His predicament felt distant to me now, as if it belonged to a stranger, and I found myself indifferent to their financial woes. I took a moment to enlighten William about my current situation, living comfortably in a luxurious condo thanks to my successful investments. His silence on the phone was telling. And after that revelation, his calls ceased, leading me to believe he had somehow coped with his situation. Unexpectedly, William reached out again, reigniting the connection I thought had been severed. Despite our history, I felt a sense of detachment as our lives had diverged significantly since the divorce. My focus remained on my newfound independence and tranquility, far removed from the complexities of my previous life with him and his family. When William called this time, I wondered what urgent matter had prompted his reach. It turned out to be a crisis. Their house was in the process of being seized. In the background, I could hear the anxious voices of his family, Samantha, Tyler, and Hannah, each filled with desperation. William, panic evident in his voice, pleaded for my help. An enforcement officer was at their doorstep, explaining that the house was set for auction and they were on the verge of eviction. I was genuinely surprised when I inquired about any warning letters, suggesting they hadn't received any. Upon further questioning, he sheepishly admitted that such letters might have been intentionally overlooked, opened without any action taken. Each family member seemed to assume that someone else was managing the loan repayments. As the reality of their situation sank in, foreclosure looming, and the full loan amount demanded immediately, I couldn't help expressing my frustration at William's apparent hopelessness. I suggested pooling their savings as a potential solution, only to be met with the bleak reality that such an option was off the table. Samantha and Tyler had depleted their savings on lavish travels, banking on their son's future support, while Hannah hadn't left her job by choice. She'd been fired for embezzling funds, a far cry from the successful city life she claimed to lead. The financial facade they maintained crumbled, revealing a dire situation. William had exhausted his savings, living under the pretense of a lucrative job while his family indulged in extravagance, all under the false assumption that their financial stability was secure. The accumulation of these poor decisions led to the inevitable seizure of their home. In the midst of this chaos, William made a desperate proposition for all of us to live together in my luxury condo, as if our divorce hadn't severed our legal and emotional ties. My response was firm and unequivocal. I refused. Our divorce marked the end of our shared paths, and my new life in the condo was a sanctuary built for my independence and success, far removed from the turmoil and deceit that had characterized our marriage. As the saga unfolded, my resolve hardened, especially after hearing my ex-in-laws, Samantha, Tyler, and Hannah, hurling insults at me in the background of the call. They called me heartless, a scammer, and a thief, only solidifying my decision to cut ties with them. Their bitterness and blame were a direct consequence of their own choices, showing no signs of self-reflection or remorse. Eventually, their argument spiraled inward, turning into a cacophony of blame among themselves. At that moment, I chose to sever all ties, quietly ending the call and ensuring no further contact by blocking William's number. A few days later, a newspaper headline caught my eye. detailing a father-son altercation that escalated to police intervention, immediately raising suspicions about William and his family. Confirmation came through a mutual acquaintance, revealing the dispute did indeed involve them and stemmed from tensions that boiled over after my last conversation with William. The altercation led to their arrest and minor injuries for all involved, along with a police warning. This incident not only bruised their physical well-being but also tarnished William's professional reputation, as rumors of the fight spread through his workplace, leaving him in a precarious position. Following the fight, the house was sold and the family relocated to a dilapidated apartment, a stark contrast to their previous living conditions. Their new life was marred by infestations and neighborly complaints, marking a significant downgrade. Hannah's history of embezzlement further complicated their attempts to stabilize, making it nearly impossible for her to secure employment. Thus, the family's financial burden fell solely on William, who, despite his efforts to locate me, found his inquiries fruitless thanks to the discretion of our mutual friends and the vigilance of my condo's concierge service. This chapter of my life, filled with turmoil and strife, felt conclusively closed as I embraced my new existence in the luxury condo. Far removed from the chaos, my days were now filled with hobbies, work, and the peaceful solitude of single life. The decision to move forward, unencumbered by the past or thoughts of marriage, was not just a choice but a declaration of my newfound independence and contentment. Hello, I'm Alexis, 29 years old, and I navigate a delicate balance between my professional life at home and in the office. My husband, Bruce, who shares my age, has a deep affection for his mother, Doris. Unfortunately, Doris often treats me unkindly, which adds tension to our relationship. Despite these challenges, Bruce and I recently celebrated our second wedding anniversary, and I take pride in managing the complexities that come with it. Work has become my sanctuary, providing both an escape and a sense of fulfillment, leading to several promotions, an accomplishment not often seen among women in my field. Currently, I'm on a business trip in Europe for crucial meetings. During one of these meetings, my phone, which was on silent, vibrated insistently, a sign that something unusual was happening. I noticed 5 missed calls from Doris and felt a wave of concern. Thinking it might be an emergency, I decided to step outside to return her call. Just as I was about to dial, she called again. "Hello, Alexis, where are you?" she demanded, her annoyance evident. I hesitated, disliking her tone, but responded, "Hi, Doris, I'm in a meeting. Is everything okay?" "Where are you?" she repeated, impatience dripping from her words. Though her demeanor irritated me, I was determined to avoid confrontation. "I'm sorry, Doris. Didn't Bruce tell you? I'm on a business trip and can we talk later?" "Bruce mentioned it, but what are you doing leaving your house and husband alone?" "Come home immediately," she insisted, her abruptness as usual. "I can't leave right now. I'm in the middle of something important," I began to explain, but she cut me off. "You're so controlling, even though you're just Bruce's wife. I don't care about your excuses. Come home right now." Her sharp words stung, but I needed to keep my composure for the sake of my professional responsibilities. "Do you realize the significance of today?" I asked, bewildered. "Oh, you really don't know?" She smirked slightly. "We're celebrating my 62nd birthday today." Her tone dripped with expectation and triumph, catching me off guard. I remembered her birthday was later in the month, and this revelation was particularly surprising since I was on a business trip. Bruce and I had planned a special dinner at an upscale restaurant to celebrate her milestone. I was growing weary of Doris's incessant attempts to control every situation, which seemed to escalate every year, especially when I was busy with work. "As I mentioned, I can't come back home today. I'm away on business," I explained calmly. "That's amusing," she shot back sarcastically. "I spoke to Bruce earlier, and he's taken the day off for me. All the relatives will be there. But you're always buried in work. You seem so detached. How do you think that makes your husband's family feel?" Her words were meant to hurt, and I knew engaging further would only escalate the situation. Since I was still in a meeting, I had little choice but to end the call. "I'm sorry, but I can't attend your birthday celebration today," I said firmly. Doris's tone shifted, frustration evident in her voice. "Fine then. I won't consider you part of the family anymore. Don't bother coming back. It's like a divorce. Bruce deserves better." Her sharp remarks left me angry and distressed. but I refused to escalate the argument over the phone. All right, we can discuss this when I get back. I'm sorry, but I need to go now, I replied, trying to keep my tone steady. What's with that attitude? Doris snapped back. I told you not to come back. I'll talk to Bruce myself. With that, she hung up. Exhausted from my interaction with my mother-in-law, I returned to my meeting, letting out a deep sigh. After 3 grueling days of back-to-back meetings, I finally headed home, my mind consumed with anger and frustration from the confrontation with Doris. I barely registered the drive, lost in my thoughts. When I opened the front door and called out, my husband Bruce greeted me with a weary, "Welcome back." I slipped off my heels and made my way into the living room, leaving my luggage by the entrance. There, surrounded by a sea of cardboard boxes, I found Bruce, visibly sweating as he sealed them with tape. "What's with all the boxes?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. Bruce explained that they contained my belongings. He went on to recount how, during Doris's 62nd birthday celebration, the very day she had called me, she announced to everyone that I had neglected her birthday and been rude on the phone. To my shock, she told the relatives that she wanted me divorced and sent back to my parents' house because I wasn't a suitable match for her son. This was classic Doris. I pressed Bruce for more details. "And then what happened? Did your mother tell you to get a divorce and you just agreed to it?" "No, I didn't exactly agree," Bruce replied, his voice weary. "But she insisted I pack up your stuff." I felt cornered. What was I supposed to do? He paused his packing, looking defeated. "What do you mean you didn't argue with her? Does this mean you're okay with the idea of us getting a divorce?" My confusion and frustration were mounting. Bruce then shared that his father, Russell, had sided with Doris, telling him, "If Doris is upset, it'll be hard on you. It's best to just do what she says." Bruce had reluctantly gone along with the idea of a divorce, leaving me stunned by how easily he seemed to accept his mother's demands. "What is wrong with your family?" I pondered aloud. "Your father is dominated by your mother, and you just blindly obey her too." I felt utterly alone, as if no one was standing by me. After a long silence, Bruce finally spoke. "What my mother decides is final, but it's only until she calms down and things settle. This divorce isn't real. I'll come for you when things get better." His eyes pleaded with me for understanding, and I wished he would direct that pleading towards his mother instead. How could a grown man like Bruce be so fearful of his mother? I thought, a mix of disappointment and disbelief washing over me. It felt like there was no salvaging this situation. I nearly felt ashamed as I questioned what I had ever seen in him. As I processed everything, I realized this might be an unexpected opportunity for liberation. Staying with Bruce meant facing Doris's antagonism and her constant insinuations about divorce. Parting ways might actually turn out to be a stroke of good fortune. I was more than capable of supporting myself, and living alone wouldn't mean deprivation of any kind. With this newfound clarity, I faced Bruce and said firmly, "Let's proceed with the divorce." After that, I dialed Doris's number. After several attempts, she finally answered. "Hello," I said softly. "As you wish, we're getting a divorce," I informed her. To my surprise, Doris's voice was unnaturally cheerful as she replied, "Yes. Finally, you realize you're not good enough for Bruce. I'm so relieved. Don't worry, I'll find him a new wife, someone obedient, pretty, and nice to her in-laws." Her words dripped with a misplaced sense of victory as she added, "I'm sure Bruce will be just fine. I'll take care of him until he finds his next wife. You don't need to worry about that." Enduring her barrage of sarcasm, I retorted, "Well, don't misunderstand. It's not just about you." Still buoyed by her mood, Doris snapped back, "Oh, you're just a sore loser. Don't worry about me or Bruce, Alexis. I got the divorce papers from the city office and gave them to Bruce. Don't forget to sign them." With that, she hung up. Bruce, who had overheard my conversation, looked oddly relieved. This prompted me to question his awareness of the situation. "By the way, does your mother know you're actually a full-time house husband?" "How could I tell her that?" he replied, his tone turning serious. "My mother is obsessed with the idea that I'm a high-ranking employee at a big company." "Right," I acknowledged, reflecting on his behavior. It dawned on me that Bruce had never been transparent with Doris. At home, he lounged in worn-out sweatshirts but switched to a suit whenever he met her, pretending to be at work whenever she called. Alisa had proudly proclaimed at her birthday party that Bruce was such a devoted son, taking time off just to be there. She also boasted about his supposed status, claiming he could easily find a more obedient and attractive wife than me. This facade, maintained for the sake of appearances, was part of the bizarre dynamics that had steered our relationship to this point. The truth's revelation seemed inevitable once our divorce was finalized, but Doris, who held her son in such high esteem, would likely never anticipate that Bruce was no longer employed at the prestigious company he once worked for. In fact, he had left that job about a year ago. What Doris perceived as her elite, high-status son was now an unemployed, full-time house husband. Bruce's departure from his job stemmed from a significant mistake that led to a demotion, a pay cut, and a formal apology. He had likely kept this hidden from his mother, fearing her reaction. The setback had a profound effect on him, especially given Doris's tendency to coddle him. The mere thought of returning to an office environment and facing the repercussions of his error triggered immense anxiety and nausea. Initially, he tried to manage the situation by reporting his absences and requesting paid leave. But eventually, he stopped calling altogether. As his unauthorized absences piled up, he was terminated. Now, without any intention of seeking new employment, Bruce relied heavily on my income, knowing that sharing this with Doris would unleash both her fury and disappointment. I felt a twinge of regret at the thought of not witnessing Doris's reaction upon discovering her son's situation after my departure. I imagined she would be utterly shocked, perhaps even to an extreme degree. However, that was no longer my concern. When Bruce handed me the divorce papers, he mentioned that they were merely a facade to appease his mother. Okay, I said, processing the information. I promptly filed the papers and signed a lease for a new apartment, planning to move out as soon as possible. A month later, to my surprise, Doris called. Despite believing I had severed ties for good, curiosity got the better of me, and I answered, "What do you want now? Aren't you happy to be rid of me?" I asked, my voice tinged with sarcasm. "You're still the same. Just listen to me," Doris replied, her tone unchanged. As she spoke about Bruce, she revealed that since my departure, she had visited his apartment multiple times to help with chores, only to find him idly lounging in his room each time, with no indication of going to work or being ill. Suppressing a laugh, I responded nonchalantly, "Well, Bruce is like that because he has no intention of working again." Doris, seemingly oblivious to her role in the situation, shockingly asked, "Alexis, can you do something about it?" "Why should I? You didn't want me in your family and wanted nothing to do with me," I retorted. It was so typical of her to ask for help only when it suited her after having mistreated me for so long. The irony of the situation was not lost on me, and I felt a sense of vindication as I realized the full extent of her self-inflicted predicament. Doris then tried to pin the blame on me. "I was wondering if you said something to Bruce before you left." I was incredulous at her insinuation. "Really, Doris? You think I married Bruce just for a luxurious life? Why would the divorce hurt if that were true?" She eyed me suspiciously as if I had married Bruce solely for his wealth. "Are you kidding me? I was the one supporting Bruce financially throughout our marriage. It was me providing for him, not the other way around. Because of him, I couldn't even afford to live extravagantly," I continued, the thought crossing my mind of whether I should consider asking for alimony. Doris was taken aback by my statement. "How dare you make up something like that, Alexis? You just forgot to ask for alimony, didn't you? Bruce has a higher income and position than you. Don't be so unreasonable. If you want money, Bruce can pay whatever you want. After all, he is a high-level employee at a major company," she retorted, her argument as preposterous as ever. Perhaps Bruce had yet to tell her the truth. I didn't want to seem like I was merely gossiping. But I saw an opportunity to set the record straight. "Your proud son is a full-time house husband. He quit his job a long time ago," I revealed. "You're lying," Doris shouted, her voice so loud that I winced, fearing for my eardrums. Pulling the phone away from my ear, I suggested, "Why don't you check with his company? You'll find out who's telling the truth." Doris went silent for a moment, then her tone noticeably softened. "Well, what if that's true? How are we going to manage? I can't support my son on just my pension, and no one will want to marry him if he's unemployed. What are we going to do?" I couldn't help but grin at her sudden change of heart. "What shall we do?" I echoed, amusement lacing my voice. After a pause, she mumbled something to someone beside her, then, with a completely altered tone, she pleaded, "Hey, Alexis, will you please come back home?" Her sudden shift puzzled me, but I replied firmly, "No, we're already divorced. I wouldn't come back to your family if heaven and earth turned upside down." The finality in my voice marked the end of that chapter as I moved on from the convoluted ties that had bound me. As I spoke to Doris, a commotion erupted in the background. Someone was shouting. It sounded like Bruce. His voice cut through the noise. "I told you I'd come for you when things settled down." Doris quickly responded, "Yes, you could remarry my son if you want it." "What are you talking about?" I asked, baffled. "No way. I wouldn't do it for the world. Don't joke about this." I made it clear to Doris that I had no interest in rekindling anything with her son or entangling myself in any more toxic dynamics. I was done with someone who was overly devoted to his mother. "I did what you asked, so please stop changing your mind," Doris retorted. But the tension was palpable, even through the phone. "It's not like you should take my words so seriously. You've been quite dismissive, haven't you?" she added. "I didn't think you'd go through with divorcing my son." Her tone revealed her surprise at my firm rejection. In response to Doris's string of excuses, I replied, "Well, I was just tolerating the situation. Besides, Bruce packed up my things and essentially kicked me out without my consent." I vented my frustration, listing all that she had orchestrated against me. "That was just a prank," she claimed nonchalantly. "A prank? It's worse than that," I said, utterly exasperated. There was nothing more to be said. Glancing at my watch, I noted it was nearly 2:00 p.m. My lunch break had been squandered on this fruitless conversation. "Ah, Doris, are you done now?" I asked, eager to wrap things up. "Alexis, what did you say?" she replied, her voice sickeningly sweet. Did she think a sweet tone would soften my response? Knowing I wouldn't meet her expectations, I said firmly, "I'm going to hang up now. I have another meeting in a few minutes and need to review some documents." As I began to disconnect the call, Doris persisted. "Wait, Alexis. Hey, Alexis, say something." I could hear her shouting as I hung up, leaving the chaos and unwelcome entreaties behind me. I was ready to move forward, free from the turmoil that had entangled me for too long. During the chaos of our phone call, Doris took the opportunity to berate Bruce, chiding him for mishandling the situation and pointing out the consequences of his actions. It became evident that she was quick to blame everyone else for her troubles. Completely drained by her behavior, I ended the call and decided to block her number for good. Afterward, Bruce tried repeatedly to reach me. Seeing a clear path forward, I consulted my lawyer about seeking alimony. Faced with the prospect of legal action, Bruce's family, likely anxious about the ramifications, agreed to settle the alimony in a lump sum payment. It seemed my former in-laws had to advance the money, which left Russell and Doris constantly agitated with Bruce. They urged him daily to find a job, which only added to his frustrations. Ultimately, Bruce moved back into his parents' house because he could no longer afford his apartment rent. He blamed his parents for his situation, which strained their finances, including their pension and retirement savings. Like mother, like son, they continued to blame each other for their predicaments while refusing to reflect on their contributions to the mess they were in. They were even considering applying for welfare, a move I hoped would make them realize that their selfish behavior couldn't continue indefinitely. On a brighter note for me, the business proposal I made during my trip was accepted, leading to a significant contract. This achievement resulted in another promotion, a higher salary, and a more affluent lifestyle. Now, enjoying the freedom of a rich bachelor's existence, I was relieved to be free from the torment of in-laws and financial dependence on family members. Reflecting on the past, if I ever considered marriage again, I would undoubtedly conduct a thorough background check to avoid any mama's boys or troublesome in-laws.